I'm leveling up my stats and marvel. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 51 Odin. Thor is finally becoming a little more sensible. Before Thor knew it, the banquet had shifted from them drinking with Russell to the Warriors 3, Sif, and Russell drinking with him. Despite his exceptional drinking capacity, he was outnumbered. Several hours later, Thor was passed out, completely drunk. That's enough for today. Thank you all for your hospitality, Russell suggested, ending the drinking session after Thor had been forced to drink. Mead, though delicious, became cloying after a while. Alright, Sif, still somewhat sober, agreed, rising to signal the others to leave. As for Loki, he was nowhere to be seen. Russell had been wondering if Loki would offer some treasure to win him over. The Warriors 3 were also quite drunk, supporting each other to maintain their balance. Sif, however, remained relatively sober. After regaining her balance, Sif helped Thor to leave. Aren't you taking the hammer? Russell asked, pointing to Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, on the ground. Sif turned back and explained, no one but Thor and the King of Gods can lift Mjolnir. Let's just leave it here for now. Thor will automatically recall Mjolnir when he sobers up. Is it too heavy? After all, it's made from the core of a dying star, Russell asked casually, reaching for the hammer handle. Russell firmly believed that all magic in the world was the application of energy. Whether only Thor and Odin could lift it, or only a person of pure and virtuous character could lift it, as long as it was a spell, it was a form of magic. Gripping the hammer handle, Russell activated his senses to the fullest. He felt Mjolnir receiving his soul fluctuations, seemingly using this as a basis for judgment. Russell also sensed Mjolnir's fluctuations, performing reverse analysis to reconstruct them. Then, he controlled and changed the frequency of his own soul fluctuations. The frequency matched. With a flick of his wrist, Mjolnir spun twice in the air before landing in Russell's hand. It's not good to just throw things away. I'll take it back for Thor. I may not have much else, but I have plenty of strength. Bang! Bang bang bang. Sif stared, dumbfounded, as Russell effortlessly picked up Mjolnir. In a moment of inattention, she let go, causing the drunken Thor to fall to the ground. The Warriors 3, also stunned, forgot to support each other and stumbled. Thor, lying on the ground, seemed to wake up. In his dazed state, he saw a blurry figure holding his Mjolnir, silently watching him. Father, what are you doing with my Mjolnir? Give it back. Before he could finish speaking, Thor fell asleep again. Sif, regaining her senses, asked incredulously, How did you pick it up? Russell smiled shyly. I saw you all had left it behind, and I thought it wasn't good to leave things lying around, so I thought I'd get it for you. I just picked it up casually. It wasn't very heavy. Sif stared at Russell silently, expressionless, as if to say, do you think I'll believe that? Russell, I don't care what you think, I care what I think. After a brief moment of showing off and indulging in his own little fantasy, Russell didn't dwell on the topic any longer and changed the subject. Let's go. Let's send Thor back first. We can't let the King of Asgard be left to wander the streets, can we? Russell turned, wanting to find Loki, hoping he would agree with him. But he didn't find him. In the solemn, majestic golden palace, Odin, clad in golden armor, looked down. The dense cluster of golden buildings, the peaceful home of the Asgardians, the very foundation of his achievements. He had defended the peace of the Nine Realms for over 1,000 years. But now, everything seemed about to be shattered, and war was about to reignite. Turning to his attendant, Odin asked, how is Thor doing? He knew his son. Even though he had already reprimanded Thor, with his coronation ceremony disrupted, it was hard to guarantee that Thor wouldn't do something rash. Your Majesty, His Highness Thor has returned to his palace and gone to sleep. Odin raised an eyebrow. This wasn't like Thor at all. At the very least, he should confide in a friend and scold himself. Odin slowly opened his mouth and continued to ask, what happened? The guard replied, the sorcerer Russell, a guest of Kamartaj, drank everyone present under the table at a banquet. Prince Thor, hearing of this, went to accompany him, and then, Thor was also drunk. Odin's tone was somewhat curious. Yes, Odin wasn't particularly surprised that Thor had been drunk. When he first saw Russell, his crisis sense triggered, and he knew Russell was no ordinary man. Now, Asgard might be in danger, and Kamartaj had decisively chosen its side. The Ancient One, the Sorcerer Supreme, showed her support for Asgard by personally attending Thor's coronation ceremony. Russell's strength meant Kamartaj's strength, which was also a good thing for Asgard. Not daring to keep him in suspense, the guard went straight to the point. Your Majesty, there's one more thing. Russell has taken up Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, clang. This time, Odin was also somewhat shocked. Odin stamped his foot on Gungnir, the Spear of Eternity. In the vast universe and the infinite multiverse, countless beings possess immense power. But those who are both powerful and kind-hearted, pure, and truly good are few and far between. Unexpectedly, as Ragnarok approaches in Asgard, such an ally has descended from the heavens. For a moment, Odin's heart surged with emotion. Odin didn't dwell on it. He had confidence in himself and in the past kings of Asgard. Russell, using other abilities, bypassed his spell and lifted Mjolnir, Thor's hammer? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Thor, in his anger, didn't think of attacking Jotunheim to vent his anger. Instead, he thought of taking care of the guests who had traveled from afar. It seems my son has improved. But in the end, he got himself drunk. Alice, he has improved, but not much. Odin's gaze continued to fall upon Asgard below. Some saw peace and prosperity, but he saw only turmoil. The next day, early morning, Thor slowly awoke. Damn it, I got drunk yesterday, messed things up. But Russell is a real drinker. I'll get a good drink with him after I've dealt with the frost giants. Thor looked into the distance, his palm outstretched, Mjolnir, whoosh. As Thor gazed into the distance, Mjolnir flew swiftly into his hand. Mjolnir, Thor, did I bring you back with me yesterday because I was drunk? Thor muttered to himself. That must be it. In a daze, Thor imagined a less than pleasant scene. Let's go. Thor flung his hammer, grabbed it, and flew up. He was going to find Loki, Sif, and the Warriors 3 to finish what he hadn't done yesterday. Attack Jotunheim, find the frost giants, and figure out why they invaded Asgard. And how they invaded Asgard. Thank you to Lazy September and Reader 150,925,215,033,001 for the monthly ticket. Thank you to Hiziao Shionkaki, Zixxugo, and The Color of the Sea for the donations. Chapter 52 Thor is trapped in Jotunheim. The Rainbow Bridge. It is both a powerful weapon of war and a rapid means of transportation. As a weapon of war, when fully activated, it can completely destroy a planet. As a means of transportation, once its location is activated, it can teleport people or objects to various parts of the universe, or from various parts of the universe back to Asgard. Thor and his companions are riding horses, galloping across the Rainbow Bridge in a triangular formation. Leading the way is Thor, who is beaming with excitement, determined to attack Jotunheim. In the second row are Loki and Sif, their expressions contrasting. Sif's face shows helplessness. She thought that after yesterday's drunken revelry, Thor would change his mind after calming down. Unexpectedly, Thor's first act after sobering up was to gather them and attack Jotunheim. Loki, on the other hand, has a smug look on his face. He thought that yesterday's interruption would ruin the plan. Unexpectedly, Thor is stubborn and believes his nonsense that if we don't find a loophole, the frost giants might lead their armies to attack Asgard next time. They were heading to Jotunheim to confront the frost giants and investigate the truth behind their invasion of Asgard's treasury. Loki vaguely felt he'd forgotten something. A moment later, Thor and his companions reached the end of the Rainbow Bridge, where they were blocked by a tall figure in golden armor, leaning on his sword. It was Hildum, the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge in Bethlehem. Legend had it that he could see and hear everything, monitoring the 9 realms for Odin. Just as Thor stepped forward to explain their purpose, Loki blocked his way, saying, "Leave it to me." Loki approached with a smile and greeted Heimdall. "Greetings, Heim, you're not dressed warmly enough." Heimdall interrupted Loki's greeting expressionlessly. Loki feigned confusion. "What did you say?" Heimdall, his gaze unwavering, replied calmly, "Do you think you can fool me?" Loki laughed, trying to bluff his way out. "You must be mistaken." Enough. This time, Thor interrupted Loki. As Thor's voice rang out, Loki's face darkened. The imposing Thor, clad in armor and cloak, approached, cutting to the chase. Heimdall, can we cross over? Heimdall looked at Thor, solemnly stating, no enemy has ever escaped my eyes, until today. I want to know what's going on, then don't tell anyone where we're going until we return, understand? Thor responded with an air of authority, stepping past Heimdall and heading towards the rainbow bridge behind him. Sif and the warriors three followed closely behind, leaving Loki alone, frozen in place for a moment. Reaching the rainbow bridge control center, Heimdall inserted his sword into the control panel, activating the bridge. Countless lightning-like bursts of energy erupted from the control panel, shooting towards the mysterious runes on the surrounding walls. A device beneath the control panel activated, and the entire spherical control center began to spin rapidly. Finally, the pointed end aligned with a direction in the void. A rainbow of light passed through Thor and his companions, shooting straight into deep space. It reached Jotunheim, a planet perpetually shrouded in ice and shrouded in darkness, far beyond a distant galaxy. A dozen breaths later, Thor and his companions landed. Before them lay a towering, dilapidated ice fortress, with glaciers hanging upside down. Damn it, Loki remembered. He had forgotten to have his guards inform Odin. If they clashed with the frost giants, they would truly be surrounded and isolated. Exploring further, Thor and his companions arrived at a palace, where they encountered Laufey, the frost giant king, who resembled a white walker with crimson eyes. Upon seeing Laufey, the frost giant king, Thor, as always, asked bluntly, how did your people enter Asgard? Laufey sighed coldly, glanced at Thor, and said disdainfully, Odin's house is full of traitors. Thor stepped forward and rebuked him angrily, don't slander my father's name with lies. Laufey suddenly stood up angrily, your father was an executioner, a thief, clearly. He harbored resentment over the defeat at the Battle of Tunsberg. He believed that if Odin hadn't raided the Frost Giant's temple and stolen a casket of ice, he wouldn't have been defeated. After his roar, Laufey continued to mock, and what have you come for, to make peace? You crave war, you yearn for it. You're nothing but a little boy trying to prove he's a grown-up. Thor gripped Mjolnir tightly in his hand. This boy is tired of your mockery. The situation suddenly became tense, and a great battle was imminent. Countless frost giants around them gathered ice in their hands, forming ice blades. Thor, think twice before you act. Loki, sensing the unfavorable situation, quickly moved closer to Thor and whispered. Look around you, we are outnumbered, remember your position, brother. Thor remained unmoved. Seeing Thor's anger, Laufey stepped down from his throne and stood before them, looking down at them. You may not know what your actions will bring, but I do. Until I change my mind, leave. Loki bowed slightly, humbly saying, we will accept your most lenient offer. Thor's angry gaze darted back and forth between Loki and Laufey. After much hesitation, he decided to swallow his anger. He might be able to fight his way out of the encirclement of so many frost giants, but the others couldn't. Let's go, brother. Loki turned to pull Thor away. Thor also turned to leave. Go home, little princess. Laufey's mocking voice came from behind. Damn it, Loki sighed inwardly. He could already guess what was going to happen next. Thor, enraged, was strangely relieved. He flashed his signature smile. Mjolnir slipped from his hand, and he gripped the hammer handle. He twisted and swung. It struck Laufey squarely in the chest. Bang! Laufey flew through the air, crashing into the distance. The war had suddenly begun and quickly escalated to fever pitch. This was 5 Asgardians plus 1 Asgardian against her planet's frost giants. Heimdall, on the Rainbow Bridge, frowned as he witnessed this. Should he report to the King of Gods? In Asgard, at Fensarel, the Crystal Palace, the residence of Queen Frigga, who was discussing the principles of magic with the Ancient One, suddenly frowned. Just now, she had foreseen a terrible future. The warriors 3 of Asgard would perish at Jotunheim, Sif and Loki would be severely wounded, and Thor, alone, would be unable to withstand the overwhelming army. Frigga was a witch with the ability to foresee the future, occasionally able to see glimpses of it. But she kept her secrets, never revealing what she knew. Just like the Ancient One, the guardian of the Time Stone, who never easily interferes in the mortal world. But, this matter. Seeing Frigga's sudden change in expression, the Ancient One smiled and took a sip of tea. Yes, she never easily interferes in the mortal world, but she has a useful and unruly disciple. Russell, here's some work. Chapter 53 Guyi, he is the most outstanding among us. The Ancient One planned to take on the task of rescuing Thor and entrust it to Russell. Just as Odin needed to hold Thor's coronation ceremony to build momentum, the Ancient One also needed a suitable opportunity to promote Russell, allowing him to fully demonstrate his power and intimidate the surrounding dimensional demons. Colluding to blackmail Mephisto was out of the question. That would damage the image of the Sorcerer Supreme of Kamartaj. The Frost Giants were the targets the Ancient One chose for Russell. Individually, their strength was generally average. They relied on numbers to overcome the enemy. Luffy, the Frost Giant King, a high-level fighter, had been significantly weakened since Odin took the Ice Casket. From a power structure perspective, he was completely outmatched by Russell. None of them could break through his defenses. More importantly, there was a legitimate reason for their actions. 1,000 years ago, the Frost Giants invaded Earth, attempting to turn it into an ice age, a paradise for them. Kamartaj was also part of the resistance against the Frost Giants 1,000 years ago. Russell, now a member of Kamartaj, represented Earth and Jotunheim to collect their debt. It was all perfectly reasonable. The Ancient One feigned concern and asked Frigga, "Queen, is something troubling you?" After a moment's hesitation, Frigga frowned and slowly nodded. With her 2 sons and future daughter-in-law, Sif, at stake, she couldn't risk violating her principles and revealing secrets. She needed to find Odin and ask him to rescue Thor and the others. Frigga rose and bid farewell to the Ancient One. "Sorcerer Supreme, I have other matters to attend to, please excuse me." The Ancient One asked, "Is your Majesty going to see the King of Gods to discuss rescuing Prince Thor?" "Why don't we go together?" Frigga countered. "Does the Ancient One know?" The Ancient One nodded. "I guessed." Frigga nodded. "Then let's go together." With that, Frigga lifted her skirt and quickened her pace, heading towards the Golden Palace where Odin often resided. The Ancient One followed, her steps seemingly slow but actually swift. Passing through several palaces, the two met Odin, who was overlooking Asgard, reminiscing about the past. Frigga, disregarding etiquette, went straight to the point. "Thor and the others are in trouble in Jotunheim and need our help." Odin frowned, a surge of anger rising within him. He had thought Thor had grown much better just yesterday. How did they get to Jotunheim? The Rainbow Bridge? Why didn't Heimdall report to me? Does he think I, the King of Gods, am old and senile? In an instant, Odin understood the whole story. "Sorcerer Supreme," he hurriedly greeted the Ancient One, then picked up the Spear of Eternity, preparing to fly to the Rainbow Bridge. Despite his anger, he couldn't simply watch Thor fall into Jotunheim's clutches. "King of Gods," the Ancient One called out to Odin. "If you trust me, why not let Sorcerer Russell go and give it a try? He is the next Sorcerer Supreme, and will succeed him in a few years. At that time, he and Thor will jointly protect the peace of this world from magical corruption. Why not let them try fighting side by side now?" This was Ancient One's polite remark. Her true intention was to prepare Thor to rely on her for support. "All right. Thank you for your assistance, Sorcerer Supreme," Odin agreed, his furrowed brow slowly relaxing. "The Kamartaj lineage truly are all good people." Ancient One smiled, not responding to Odin's thanks. "Russell has arrived at the Rainbow Bridge. Please have Heimdall allow him to pass." On the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall, having received Odin's message, stepped aside to let Russell pass, then followed. Looking at Russell's back, Heimdall's eyes were filled with confusion. From Russell's aura, he could sense that Russell was a warrior stronger than himself, even stronger than Thor. But could he really go to Jotunheim alone to rescue Thor? Not only Heimdall, but Frigga also had doubts. The difference was that Heimdall could only keep his doubts to himself, while she could ask directly. The Sorcerer Supreme, the Sorcerer Russell, the Ancient One naturally understood the unspoken meaning. Although Russell didn't succeed as the Sorcerer Supreme, his strength has already surpassed mine. He is the best among us, the Sorcerer Supreme. With the old gods absent, Russell was invincible. The last sentence was a bit melodramatic, and the Ancient One didn't dare say it aloud. But that was the meaning. Odin and Frigga glanced sideways. They both sensed the trust in Russell in the Ancient One's words. Could it be that the Sorcerer Russell's strength has surpassed mine? That's unlikely. Odin muttered to himself. He was confident he could defeat the Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One, but he couldn't say for sure that his strength was definitely superior. Yes, the Ancient One actually thought the same thing. The strong are always confident in their own strength. Jotunheim. Thor, with his unparalleled strength, rampaged through the frost giants, unmatched in combat. The other 5, however, were already locked in a fierce battle. Aside from Loki using illusions to maneuver, the other 4 were wounded. Fandral, one of the warriors' 3, was severely injured in the melee, pierced through the chest by a multifaceted ice spike, almost rendering him immobile. Breakthrough, Thor roared, slamming Mjolnir into the sky, unleashing a bolt of lightning that blasted away countless frost giant warriors. He then swung it forward, dragging Mjolnir along, smashing through a frost beast blocking the path. Thor led the charge. Along the way, he felled and sent flying countless frost giant warriors, clearing an escape route for his teammates. The others helped Fandral up and quickly followed. The frost giant warriors pursued relentlessly. After fleeing, Thor and his companions were forced to a cliff edge. Behind them were frost giants in pursuit, and ahead lay a frost beast blocking the path. Heimdall, open the rainbow bridge, Thor roared to the heavens, trying to get Heimdall to open the rainbow bridge and send them back. But Heimdall didn't respond. Clearly, he had forgotten Heimdall's words before sending them to Jotunheim. If their return threatened the safety of Asgard, the rainbow bridge would not open for them. The frost behemoth blocking the path made a move to smash them flat. Seeing this, Thor, no longer able to call for Heimdall to open the rainbow bridge, swung his hammer to meet it. Of everyone present, only he had the ability to deal with the frost behemoth. But, he couldn't defend himself against the frost behemoth in front of him and the frost giants behind him simultaneously. Surrounded by countless frost giants, the 4 Asgardians huddled together, desperately resisting. As for Loki, he had somehow escaped using an illusion. Crack! The glacier beneath their feet suddenly broke, and in the chaos, their formation was disrupted, leaving the heavily wounded Fandral alone before the frost giant sizzle. The blade pierced through his body, striking his heart. At the critical moment, Volstagg used his obese body to shield Fandral from the attack. No, witnessing his friend's death, Thor went completely mad. Thanks to coffee needs to be bitter, the turtle turned into an island, carrying wine in the midstream. Book friend 20221010210945084. Book friend 160,725,100,300,2114. Book friend 20170711214715987. Book friend 15031. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video. 43,716. Beans, Kangling War Song. My handsome nobody noticed. Keisha wearing long johns. Maple writes monthly ticket. Chapter 54. Intimidating Jotunheim. The arrogant Russell. Witnessing his friend's death, Thor went into a frenzy. His power as the god of thunder surged forth through Mjolnir, unleashing its might in all directions. For a time, the frost giants who had surrounded him were forced to retreat by Thor alone. However, even ants can kill an elephant if they are numerous. The frost giants continued to arrive from all directions, fearlessly charging towards Thor, draining his divine power and stamina. Thor, unable to withstand the onslaught alone, could only continuously shrink his attack range. Finally, he retreated to the side of his remaining 3 teammates, barely managing to protect them. Noticing Loki was not among them, Thor asked, panting, "Where's Loki?" Sif and Hogun, whose injuries were less severe and who still retained their fighting strength, exchanged a glance and both shook their heads. "We don't know, we haven't seen him in a long time." Thor's heart sank. Could it be that Loki was also dead? He shook his head, banishing these thoughts from his mind. The battle was not over yet. It was not the time for grief. "Thor," Sif whispered, "you break through, Hogun and I will cover you." "No," Thor refused resolutely, "I will not abandon you and escape alone." "Thor," Sif's voice rose, "if you don't leave, none of us will escape." "That's right, none of you will escape." Observing that Thor's divine power was waning, Loki decided to take the initiative. Today, he would use the death of Odin's son to rebuild the glory of the frost giants. "Die, son of Odin." Seizing the moment when Thor swung his hammer, Loki swung his axe at Thor. Just then, a rainbow of light descended from the sky. Boom! With a deafening roar, the surrounding frost giants were all thrown back, including Loki. Russell, the hero, made his entrance. Scanning the area, he saw only 3 people with Thor. Volstagg lay dead to one side. Loki was nowhere to be seen. Russell sighed softly. It seems I'm a little late. It's a pity. In Asgard, one can't openly use teleportation spells, otherwise it will be detected as an intrusion due to spatial fluctuations. And taking the Rainbow Bridge was still a bit too slow. Turning around, Russell looked at the countless frost giant warriors before him and in the distance. He strode forward, declaring domineeringly, "This war. I will end it." With that, Russell walked towards the frost giant King Laufey. His mental energy gradually expanded, becoming almost tangible, pressing down on the numerous frost giant warriors. "If you haven't had enough, then I will be your opponent." Tap tap tap. Russell approached step by step, radiating hostility, his mental energy becoming more aggressive. Laufey's face was grim, his tone icy. "Strong stranger, I advise you not to get involved in this mess." Roar! A colossal ice beast suddenly pounced from the side, opening its blood-red maw to bite Russell. Russell frowned, taking a large step back with a hint of disdain, just managing to dodge. He raised his hand and slapped at the head of the frost giant. "Careful, don't touch the frost giant's body directly, you'll be corroded by the icy energy," Sif warned, but it was too late. But it didn't matter. Russell lightly placed his hand on the frost giant's head and said softly, "I once heard a joke that Thor is afraid of electricity. I wonder if the frost giant is afraid of ice." His talent, energy absorption, activated. Instantly, he plundered all the icy energy and internal energy from the frost giant's body. The frost giant's temperature dropped to near 0 K, its cells, molecules, and atoms frozen solid. A lifelike ice sculpture of a giant beast appeared before everyone's eyes. Slowly withdrawing his hand, Russell looked at Laufey. "Is this your answer, Frost Giant King Laufey?" Boom. The next second, the wind and clouds shifted, churning, and the earth tore apart. The mental energy pressing down on the frost giant warriors transformed from boulders into sharp blades, piercing straight into their souls. Only a small fraction of the frost giant warrior managed to scream, then either barely managed to stand or collapse to the ground. The vast majority of the frost giant warriors remained silent, falling asleep instantly. Loki couldn't help but let out a muffled groan, revealing himself from his disguise. In the recent melee, he had secretly disguised himself as a frost giant warrior, turning enemies into allies. However, at this moment, no one noticed him. Seeing this, Loki quietly pulled Russell to his side. Looking at the tens of thousands of frost giant warriors within a radius of dozens of kilometers, almost all of them had instantly lost their fighting ability. Thor and the others, unable to discern the reason for the sudden freezing of the frost beast, didn't find it terrifying. But the fact that one person could wipe out tens of thousands of frost giant warriors nearby in almost an instant was completely beyond Thor's imagination. Laufey's face turned ashen. On one hand, it was truly shameful that the frost beast had been frozen by others using ice magic. Laufey hadn't seen through Russell's method either. On the other hand, the instantaneous annihilation of tens of thousands of soldiers made Laufey increasingly wary of Russell. But such a wide-range attack must have been incredibly taxing. He didn't believe Russell could wipe out the frost giants before exhausting his energy and stamina. However, the frost giant warriors around him were now all incapacitated. It was impossible to keep Thor and the others alive. Laufey coldly swept his gaze over Thor and the others, uttering harsh words. "Thor Odinson, take your friends and get out of here. But this isn't over yet. I'll give you what you want, war, and death." Taking advantage of the stalemate, Hogun also gathered Volstagg's body. Thor and his group gathered together, waiting for Heimdall to activate the Rainbow Bridge and bring them back to Asgard. Was my meaning unclear? Just as Laufey and Thor were preparing to call a truce and fight another day, Russell's voice rang out untimely. "I said, I'm here to end this war." Swish. All eyes turned to Russell, fixed on him. Laufey and Thor hadn't expected that Russell, after forcefully suppressing the frost giant warriors and creating an opening to rescue Thor and his group, wasn't satisfied. He wanted to force the frost giants to declare a truce. "This is outrageous." Laufey, unable to bear it any longer, condensed an ice greatsword and slashed at Russell. Russell neither dodged nor evaded, nor even used his divine power to resist. Clang. A harsh sound of metal clashing rang out. To Laufey and Thor's astonishment, Russell was unharmed. Laufey's ice greatsword, however, was covered in cracks after the collision. Russell grinned. Even though Laufey, the frost giant king, was the one who resembled a demon, while Russell was handsome and dashing. Russell's smile was terrifying and eerie to everyone. Just looking at it sent chills down their spines. My turn. Russell clenched his fist, his divine power rapidly gathering. Crack! A sonic boom resounded as Russell unleashed a punch, slamming it into Luffy's chest with lightning speed. With each punch, Russell roared inwardly, "So you're called Luffy, the Frost Giant King. P.S. Kelvin, K, is one of the fundamental units of temperature in thermodynamics. 0K is approximately minus 273.15 degrees Celsius and is considered absolute zero. Thanks to Gaomer 458, Lucky Benefactor, Linksy, Hellish War God, Chihuahua, ZXMQ, Classical Book Friend, Where Ice My Big Knife, Wuan Shang, Book Friend 170,303,194,042,099, Loyalting, Book Friend 2020001219117065663, WHT 2004, Eternal Immortal Existence, Wow, They're a Mouse, and Life Ice Like a Dream, for their monthly votes. Thank you to all the book friends who voted. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 The Frost Giants Submit. A fist slammed into Luffy, the Frost Giant King, in the chest, and time seemed to stand still for a moment. The next instant, Russell unleashed a burst of physical and divine power. Bang! Luffy, the Frost Giant King, was sent flying. Blood gushed from his 7 orifices, freezing into ice flowers on the ground. Crashing through countless glacial rocks, Luffy's body stopped rolling and landed amidst ruins. As the dust settled, Luffy still hadn't risen. Thor and the others looked and saw that Luffy's chest was caved in, riddled with cracks. His eyes were bloodshot and unfocused. He looked both horrifying and comical. Thor was confident he could defeat Luffy in a one-on-one fight. He had even sent Luffy flying with a single blow. But he was unharmed. To kill Luffy, the Frost Giant King, in a single blow, it would probably require his father, Odin, wielding the eternal spear Gungnir, to personally intervene. Russell strode towards Luffy in the distance. Luffy's survival was somewhat unexpected. He thought he could smash Luffy's chest with a single punch. He hadn't expected it to only severely injure him, truly worthy of a king who had once clashed with Odin. Although his strength had declined, he could still withstand a serious punch without dying. Tap tap tap. At this moment, Luffy remembered his full name, Luffy Emerson. He seemed to see his father, Ymir, the progenitor of the Frost Giants, coming to take him away. Struggling, Luffy clutched his chest and got up from the ground. He was the king of the Frost Giants. He could die in battle, but he couldn't lie on the ground like a coward, awaiting judgment from his enemies. Cough cough. Cough. Looking at Russell approaching, Luffy coughed up several mouthfuls of blood, finally able to speak. Although Luffy's tone was weak, the will revealed within was extremely firm. You can kill me, but you cannot defeat me. You can kill the warriors of the Frost Giants, but you cannot stop our revenge. As long as there is a breath left, the war between the Frost Giants and Asgard will not cease. Russell stopped, raising an eyebrow. Huh? I'm the villain now? If we're only talking about this conflict between the Frost Giants and Asgard, Russell believes Asgard is at fault. Loki deliberately led people in, and Thor came demanding an explanation. From the Frost Giants' perspective, Asgard even seems to be entrapping them. But Russell is here to take sides. This is also the Ancient One's intention. There's still a score to settle between Earthlings and the Frost Giants. Seeing Russell stop, Luffy laughed wildly. Ha ha ha, powerful warrior, what's your name? Before I die, at least let me know who killed me, the sorcerer Russell. Russell, listen to me. Luffy's eyes widened as he stared at Russell. My kingdom will not submit to you. Jotunheim will not be trampled under your feet. Countless Frost Giant warriors, you can't kill them all. Russell frowned. These giants are really stubborn. Contrary to Luffy's expectations, wiping out the entire Frost Giant race wouldn't be difficult for Russell. But there's a difference between decisive killing and bloodthirsty cruelty. Directly slaughtering an entire kingdom of Frost Giants, or even an entire planet of giants, would put too much psychological pressure on Russell. Moreover, faced with the executioner's blade, the Frost Giants might choose to fight to the bitter end, rather than submit. But what if it were done differently? I think I just told you I'm a mage. Right, Russell muttered to himself, spreading his mental energy through a slingshot to locate nearby stars. But I wonder if you've ever seen a mage like me. Look at the sky. High above, a massive portal opened, revealing the void of space on the other side. Deep within that void, a colossal star radiated light and heat. What are you planning to do? Luffy suddenly felt uneasy, but he couldn't imagine what Russell would do next. Surely he didn't think that such a small portal could melt the ice of Jotunheim with its radiation? Russell thought for a moment and explained, in my homeland, there's a legend. If 10 suns appear together, they will scorch the forests, dry the earth, and ignite the crops. I want to know, how many suns would it take to melt your ice castle? His talent, ability absorption, activated. Across the endless void, Russell drew the scattered light radiation from the stars to the portal. After passing through the portal, it dispersed again, shining directly onto the land of Jotunheim. The solar radiation, unabsorbed, unreflected, and unscattered by any atmosphere, shone down directly. Even the frost giant King Luffy felt a slight discomfort. Some of the weaker frost giants even seemed to shrink in size. Russell smiled and asked Luffy, want to add another one? Serves you right for being so stubborn. The next second, 9 enormous portals opened in the sky. On the other side of the portals were 9 stars of different sizes, but all equally vibrant and passionate. Boom! A thunderclap exploded in the heart of the frost giant King Luffy. The solar radiation from one of the stars converged and shot towards the portal. The intense light converged, and a second sun appeared in the sky above Jotunheim. Giving Luffy no time to react, the 3rd, 4th, and 10th portals all activated. The mythology of Russell's homeland was now playing out in Jotunheim. 10 suns in the sky. The years of ice in Jotunheim began to melt at a visible rate. Ordinary frost giants could no longer be exposed to the open. The intense heat from the solar radiation would cause them to shrink or even melt. They had no choice but to hide in caves in the ground to survive. Thor and the other Asgardians, while not afraid of the high temperatures, also felt unbearably hot. Loki, who had shielded Russell, noticed a small secret. The temperature and humidity around Russell were almost constant, remaining at a comfortable level. It was foreseeable that if the 10 suns in the sky lasted any longer, Jotunheim's ecosystem would be completely destroyed. At that time, the frost giants, having lost their ice casket, would be homeless. The frost giants, too, would vanish completely in a time. Stop! King Luffy of the frost giants roared. Dragging his broken body, he attacked Russell like a madman. A barrage of attacks rained down on Russell, yet couldn't even break through his own defenses. Russell coldly watched Luffy's futile efforts. He watched Luffy's frenzied attacks, watched his movement slow, watched his face turn to despair, and finally, he stopped. This frost giant king, who had once fought Odin, and even after defeat and the theft of the ice casket, refused to bow his head in submission, finally lowered his proud head under Russell's icy gaze. Stop, frost giants, I request a truce. Though called a truce, everyone knew it meant submission. Thanks to readers 140,620,211,706,478, 20230510225151749, wow. There's a mouse, and agony for their monthly tickets. Chapter 56 Odin and Thor. Luffy has submitted. Odin, who had already arrived at the Rainbow Bridge control panel, ready to intervene at any moment, was momentarily stunned. The eye he had lost in the battle against the frost giants throbbed with pain, as if reminding him of how formidable Luffy, the frost giant king, had been. Years ago, he had raided the frost giants' temple, seizing the casket of ice, their clan's most prized artifact. He had then decisively defeated the frost giants, relentlessly pursuing them and driving them back to Jotunheim. Even so, the frost giants refused to submit to his rule. It was only because he, unwilling to inflict further bloodshed, had taken the initiative to sue for peace, signing a non-aggression pact. The Ancient One maintained a calm expression, seemingly full of confidence in Russell. However, the occasional glint in her eyes revealed that her inner peace was not as serene as it appeared. She hadn't expected Russell to combine the portal with his own talents in such a way. The 10 suns appearing out of nowhere, using Jotunheim's ecology to coerce Luffy, was merely a facade, a pretext because Russell's intent to kill was not truly strong. Ancient Ones clearly saw that the solar radiation was dispersed again by Russell after passing through the portal. If Russell hadn't done that, Jotunheim would have faced 10 high-energy pulse cannons. It was said that the Bifrost in Asgard, when open for an extended period and releasing its full power, was enough to destroy a planet. He wondered if Russell could do it. Heimdall, open the Bifrost and bring Thor and the others back, Odin instructed first, regaining his composure. A moment later, the Bifrost, which Thor, Loki, and the others had longed for, finally appeared, landing behind them. But Thor, Loki, and the others didn't leave immediately. Instead, they all looked at Russell, awaiting his decision. Wait a little longer. Russell gestured for everyone to wait, then carefully examined Valstag's body. Only his heart was shattered, and his body suffered severe damage in many places. But his brain was fine, a minor issue. It seemed there was no need to use the time stone to reverse time. If the brain had been severely damaged, with billions of neurons and trillions of connections, Russell couldn't think of any other way besides using the time stone to reverse time. With Asgardian technology, a ruptured heart could be repaired. The prerequisite was bringing the soul back as well, otherwise, even if healed, he would only be in a vegetative state. Russell waved, signaling Thor and the others to leave the vicinity of Valstag's body. He took out the time stone, a replica, and a beam of green light shone upon Valstag, forming a green light barrier. This barrier froze time around him, preventing further neuronal death in his brain. Let's go. Valstag isn't quite dead yet. I've frozen his time with the time stone. Breaking the barrier will unfreeze time. During treatment, pay attention to the brain's energy supply. With that, Russell led the way towards the Rainbow Bridge. Thor and Loki followed closely behind. Sif and Hogun each supported a wounded person, and a dead person followed. Crossing the Rainbow Bridge, the group returned to Asgard. Odin, the king of the gods, Frigga, the queen of the gods, Heimdall, the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, and the Ancient One were all waiting there. After greeting Russell, Odin left with Thor, Loki, and the others, his face grim. The one who greeted Russell's triumphant return was Queen Frigga. Many thanks to the mage Russell for his assistance this time. The Asgardians will not forget their friendship with Kamartaj. We hope that in the future, we can have more exchanges and share resources. Later, a triumphant celebration will be held for the mage to commemorate his victory over Jotunheim. We cordially invite him to attend. Your Majesty is too kind. Kamartaj and Asgard have supported each other for many years, jointly protecting the peace between the 9 realms real world and the magical dimension. Offering assistance is only right and proper, Russell replied politely. It was just a polite gesture, everyone knows how to say such things. But, share resources? Does Kamartaj have any special products that Asgard doesn't have? I don't know. At this moment, the Ancient One also politely said, very well, thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty. Looking at the smiling Ancient One, Russell realized what was going on. What exchanging favors? Isn't this just a reward for this action? The Queen is indeed the Queen, so sophisticated. Odin dismissed the others and led his 2 sons aside. Once they were alone, Odin turned to Thor, his expression grim, and asked, do you know what you've done? Thor answered without hesitation, I was protecting my homeland. Odin's tone hardened as he questioned Thor, if you can't even protect your own friends, what right do you have to protect this kingdom? Thor glared at Odin, about to retort and argue, but remembering the wounded Sif and Hogun, the severely injured Fandral, and Valstag, who had nearly died but was rescued by Russell, his head bowed. After a moment's thought, Thor looked up firmly and said, if we fear action, the kingdom will perish. Seeing that Thor didn't retort in anger but answered after careful consideration, Odin breathed a sigh of relief and softened his tone, but you've forgotten everything I taught you, the patience of a warrior. You didn't do any investigation, you didn't do any preparation. You rashly led a small party to storm the Frost Giant's castle in Jotunheim, trying to force them to confess everything. Thor, I could have done it. No, you couldn't, Odin retorted. You're arrogant about your strength, but you've forgotten that your comrades don't possess your power. You think yourself strong, but you've forgotten that there are those stronger than you in the 9 kingdoms. You've been blinded by the victories you've easily achieved over the years. I didn't. Thor's voice grew softer and softer, the words of rebuttal lingering. He remembered that in the battle against the Frost Giants, there were indeed many areas beyond his capabilities. He couldn't lead his comrades to defeat the Frost Giants, nor could he even break through their encirclement. He couldn't protect the critically wounded Fandral, and it was Valstag who saved him at the cost of his life. Seeing Thor realize his mistakes, Odin tirelessly instructed him, A qualified king cannot easily wage war because of momentary anger. The peace and stability of the 9 realms are hard-won. Odin raised Gungnir in his hand, and a beam of energy shot out, forming a screen of light. On the screen was the image of Russell opening 10 portals, and 10 suns appearing in the sky. The mage Russell possessed strength no less than mine in my youth. He could have destroyed Jotunheim and killed these frost giants. But he didn't. Pointing to the light screen, Odin explained, according to measurements, the energy fluctuations of the solar radiation reaching the portal were already very close to those of the Rainbow Bridge. If the mage Russell hadn't dispersed the solar radiation after it passed through the portal, Jotunheim wouldn't have faced 10 suns scorching the earth. Instead, it would have faced an attack from 10 rainbow bridges. At that time, Jotunheim would have been ravaged by death and destruction. The entire planet could have been destroyed. Chapter 57 Odin and Loki. Destroy Jotunheim? Thor and Loki exchanged bewildered glances, both filled with shock and lingering fear. They belatedly realized they had narrowly escaped death. If Russell had destroyed Jotunheim, they likely wouldn't have survived either. The tearing apart of the star's core would have created a massive explosion. They didn't have the ability to escape Jotunheim quickly. But he didn't do that, Odin continued. Killing is merely a means, not an end. Pointless killing brings no peace. Thor, my son, remember this. As a king, you must have power, but you must also know how to use it. After reprimanding Thor, Odin looked at Loki, his gaze complex. Loki noticed Odin's gaze and met his eyes. At this moment, the father and son's expressions were inscrutable. Go down, my children. There will be a triumphant celebration later, don't forget to attend. Triumphant? Celebration? Seeing Thor raise an eyebrow and the corners of his mouth turn up, seemingly about to smile, Loki subtly nudged Thor with his elbow. Thor looked at Loki innocently, as if to say, brother, what are you doing? Loki, exasperated, could only explain, it's not for us, it's for the mage Russell. Odin glared at his dim-witted son, nodding to indicate that Loki was right. For Thor, Loki, and the others, Jotunheim's group had suffered a complete defeat. If it weren't for Russell, Odin, the Allfather, would likely have had to intervene personally to save them. But even then, the frost giants of Jotunheim wouldn't let it go easily, and a great war was inevitable. At that time, peace between the two nations would be shattered, and innocent lives would face the horrors and tragedies of war. It was Russell who single-handedly turned the tide of the war, forcing Laufey to submit and maintaining peace between the two nations. This triumphant celebration was undoubtedly held for Russell. Thor and Loki merely benefited from it. In public announcements, their defeat was concealed. Let's go, brother, let's go back and wash up. Loki led the way, leaving first, with Thor following. Watching Thor's departing figure, Odin sighed deeply. Kamar Taj, Russell the sorcerer. They were indeed reliable, and truly capable when needed. And in terms of character, there was Mjolnir's endorsement. However, what others possessed was ultimately not as valuable as what one had oneself. He hoped Thor would broaden his horizons and grow through this experience. Come forth, Loki, father. The air distorted, and Loki's figure appeared. The one who had just led Thor away was merely an illusion he had created. The two stared at each other for a long time, the air seemingly frozen in ice. Finally, Loki spoke first. Am I cursed? No. Loki looked directly at Odin and questioned, who am I? You are my son. Loki held out his palm, stared at it for a moment, and continued, I came into contact with the frost giants in Jotunheim. Afterwards, my hand became like theirs. The casket of ice wasn't the only thing you took from Jotunheim that day, was it? Odin hesitated for a long time before answering, that's right. After the war, I went into the temple and found an infant, a young descendant of the giants. Abandoned, suffering, waiting to fend for himself. He was Laufey's son, Loki countered. Laufey's son, that's right. Odin's tone was low, as if he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Loki's expression changed, and he said incredulously, why? You killed countless Jotunheim giants. Why did you take me with you? You are just an innocent child. Loki walked towards Odin, pressing closer. No, you have another purpose in taking me away. What is it? Odin remained silent. Tell me. I hope that one day, our two races can unite, form an alliance, and bring lasting peace through you. Loki's expression gradually crumbled, unable to control himself. What? Odin's tone was filled with guilt as he explained, but all of that is irrelevant now. Loki's voice trembled with tears, his world seemed to be collapsing. So, I'm just another stolen souvenir? Trapped here, waiting to be used someday, Odin countered, but his tone wasn't harsh. Why are you misinterpreting me? Loki roared. You could have told me my identity from the beginning. Why didn't you? Odin explained. You are my son, I just wanted to protect you from the truth. Loki's expression twisted, contorting into a grotesque grimace. What? Because I'm the monster parents used to scare their children before bedtime? No. Loki ignored Odin's denial, his emotions exploding. Now everything makes sense. Why have you favored Thor all these years? Because no matter how much you say you love me, you will never let the frost giant sit on the throne of Asgard. Under Loki's relentless questioning, Odin staggered and fell to the ground. At this moment, he was no longer the invincible God King, but a father who had made a mistake and was being questioned by his son. Seeing Odin fall, Loki panicked and instinctively reached out to help him up. I have long abandoned my previous plans, Loki. All these years, I have always treated you as my true son, Odin said, seizing the opportunity to grasp Loki's hand and whispering comforting words in his ear. Perhaps, sometimes I have been a little biased, but please don't doubt my love for you. Everything I have done is for my two sons. Silence fell between them. Odin admitted his bias. But this bias didn't stem from the difference in his sons' identities, rather, it came from an ancient Asgardian prejudice. Asgardians desired their royal members to be warriors of strength, courage, pride, and confidence, like Thor. In contrast, Loki was a sorcerer, inclined towards control and illusion. Asgardians viewed sorcerers as outcasts and distrusted them. As a prince, being a sorcerer was a disadvantage. Loki, too, realized this. So, my childhood will be spent in competitions I have no chance of winning. You'll only test Thor and me in strength, speed, and endurance, not in intelligence or magic. Odin remained silent. The Asgardians' preference for warriors and disdain for mages had subtly influenced him. It wasn't until 500 years ago, with the birth of the Ancient One in Midgard and Camartage, that his prejudice against mages began to lessen. But it was too late. In fact, it wasn't just Odin. Aside from Frigga, almost all the other Asgardians were prejudiced against Loki. This included Thor, Thor's allies the warriors Three and Sif, Heimdall the guardian of the Bifrost, and even the child who made Russell perform magic tricks. However, from this day forward, the Asgardians would no longer harbor prejudice against mages. Because Russell had arrived. Thanks to the following readers for their monthly tickets. 201809112143348881, Super Zai Okiang, Zingiru Niang, Zombie World, 202205211042275555, Taechushiandi SSR, Wong Ben Iazi, Just Experience, Nizile Okio, Breeziski, Can I Live Forever, 161,105,160,402,471. Fisherman Self-Fishing, Matsui Reo, Yi Chang, 3 Days Tribulation, and Just That's All. Chapter 58. Have you heard? That Mage Russell. Have you heard? Of the two mages who attended Prince Thor's coronation ceremony the day before yesterday, the man, what's his name? Russell. He defeated Laufey, the Frost Giant King. I did hear that. Is it true? They say that Mage Russell is only in his 20s, practically a child. How could he possibly defeat the Frost Giant King who once fought against Odin, the King of Gods? Your information is outdated. Queen Frigga has already ordered preparations for a triumphant celebration. It's absolutely true. This was the talk of the crowd at a banquet in Asgard. News like this was spreading rapidly, reaching almost all of Asgard. Not far away, a group of guards changing shifts were also discussing this topic. That's insane. It turns out that Laufey, the Frost Giant King, wasn't just defeated, he didn't even withstand a single blow. No way. Are you sure this news is true? The mighty Frost Giant King defeated in one move? That's too far-fetched. There's no mistake. I have a friend on duty in the medical room. At this moment, Fandral, one of the 3 warriors of Asgard who was traveling with him, was healing when he heard Fandral say this himself. That's terrifying. Who is this Mage Russell? How could he defeat the Frost Giant King in one move? The guard lowered his voice. You tell me, how many moves would it take the God King to defeat the Frost Giant King? Watch your mouth. The head guard immediately reprimanded the ignorant guard who dared to speak ill of the God King. After a while, someone whispered, He should also be able to defeat the frost giant King Luffy in one move. I heard that the frost giants lost the artifact, the casket of ice, in the Battle of Tensberg 1,000 years ago. Since then, the power of the frost giant King Luffy has been constantly weakening. That makes sense, that makes sense, the guards whispered among themselves, nodding in agreement. Who was the frost giant King Luffy? He had once fought against the god King Odin in Midgard, and Odin had to sacrifice his right eye to defeat him. If he were at his peak, how could he be defeated in a single move? Hesitantly, the reprimanded, ignorant guard spoke again. But I heard from a friend that what that Mage Russell did in Jotunheim went far beyond defeating the frost giant King Luffy. What? That Mage Russell actually defeated the frost giant King Luffy with a single punch, sending him flying 3,000 meters and vomiting 500 liters of blood. Really? An Asgardian man couldn't help but exclaim, questioning the man dressed as a bard before him. The bard raised his hand, signaling the man to lower his voice, and said in a low voice, I have special channels of information, but I can't say. Those who know, know, those who don't ask. Continue, the surrounding people urged. Right now, news about this Mage Russell was flying all over Asgard. They rarely encountered someone with inside information, and they didn't want to miss it. The bard chuckled and continued, that Mage Russell, with one spell, and tens of thousands of frost giant warriors collapsed, unconscious. How is that possible? Hearing the news that Russell, a single mage, had wiped out tens of thousands of frost giant warriors, the surrounding Asgardians stirred again. Why not? The bard's eyes widened. Prince Thor and the others have returned. Volstagg and Fandral are healing in the infirmary. You can just ask one of them. Would I lie to you? The surrounding people exchanged glances and fell silent. Then, someone muttered, our Prince Loki is a mage too, why can't he do it? Mentioning Loki, many faces flashed with sarcasm. Loki, his magic is only good for fooling people, or teasing children, ha 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 ha. At this, the Asgardians watching burst into laughter, except for one frost giant. The bard's lips curled into a slight smile. Waiting for the laughter to subside, the bard continued, this isn't even the most terrifying, the most explosive thing. This Mage Russell comes from Kamartaj in Midgard. This Kamartaj is descended from the old god Agamotto. The old god Agamotto, in turn, allied with two other old gods to form the triune god Vishanti. The Vishanti, that is the origin of all white magic in the world. White magic? Stop with the nonsense, tell me what other amazing things that Mage Russell did. Hearing the bard's rambling, veering off topic to Kamartaj and Vishanti, the people around him immediately stopped him, urging him to get back to the point. Alright, the bard shook his head helplessly and returned to the main topic. That Mage Russell opened 10 enormous portals in the sky above Heimdall. Hey, you know what a portal is, right? The bard said, glancing at someone in the corner. Yes, tell us quickly, the crowd urged. Seeing the person nod, the bard continued, on the other side of the portals were 10 stars. The Mage Russell drew in the light and heat of all 10 stars, and released it onto Jotunheim through the portals. The scene was sizzling, 10 suns in the sky. The frost giants were so scorched they didn't dare come out. Finally, the frost giant King Luffy cried and begged to surrender before the Mage Russell stopped. The onlookers gasped, feeling unbearably hot just thinking about 10 suns in the sky. After a while, someone reacted and exclaimed, wait, the frost giant King Luffy surrendered? How is that possible? A king being defeated, even instantly killed, is a rare impossible occurrence. But a giant king surrendering? The Asgardians had never heard of or seen anything like it. Why not? The bard retorted. Tell me, which is more important, the king's dignity or the kingdom's survival? The crowd remained silent. In the hearts of many, the answer was naturally the kingdom's survival. But such thoughts were best kept to themselves. Any other news? The bard shook his head. No more exciting news, but there are a few interesting ones. For example, the crowd, the frost beast is afraid of ice. The Mage Russell froze a frost beast as tall as a small mountain into an ice sculpture with a single blow. The crowd, seeing their disbelief, the bard repeated, if you don't believe me, go ask the others who returned. Okay, we believe you. Anything else? Anything else? As time passed, the bard could no longer offer anything new. The Asgardians who had been watching gradually left, leaving only one person. Loki, Kamartaj, interested. Chapter 59 The Sorcerer Supreme, Loki? Loki, Kamartaj, Interested, the bard's form shifted, and in a moment, he reverted to Russell's appearance. Loki raised an eyebrow. He'd known something was off about the bard when he'd seen him glancing at him intentionally or unintentionally several times. He hadn't expected it to be Russell in disguise. Thinking back to the bard's boasting about Russell, Loki's lips twitched involuntarily. "All right, Wizard Russell. Let's find a place to talk." Indeed, the one disguised as a bard, boasting about Wizard Russell's heroic deeds in Jotunheim, was none other than Russell himself. His earlier, nonsensical tangent about Kamartaj, Agamotto, the Triune Vishanti, and the origins of white magic was all a setup for this moment. Having overheard Loki's inner thoughts about trying to win him over and support him as Queen of Asgard, Russell had also set his sights on Loki. The more members of the Sorcerer Supreme, the better. After waiting for a day or two without Loki making any move, Russell decided to take the initiative. Thus, their chance encounter today occurred. Arriving at Loki's palace, Russell observed it closely. Like other Asgardian buildings, its exterior featured soaring spires piercing the clouds. The interior was spacious and cold, rows of massive stone pillars silently supporting the heavy roof. As an orphan, Russell knew what this palace lacked: human warmth. Reaching the drawing room, Russell followed Loki's directions, found a step, and sat down, slowly asking, "Is this your house in Asgard?" Russell emphasized the word house, his words carrying a hidden meaning. "Are you here to mock me?" Loki retorted. Russell shook his head. "I didn't think that way. It's just that this palace gives me the same feeling as my old house on Earth. It lacks human warmth." Loki raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Wasn't you popular on Earth, Wizard Russell?" Russell shook his head again. "No, I have a teacher, a girlfriend, friends, and fellow disciples." "What about your family?" Loki asked. Although he didn't understand why Russell wanted to talk to him, he didn't mind chatting with him. Or rather, no wizard would refuse to talk to a mysterious and powerful wizard. Russell smiled. "I'm an orphan." Loki was puzzled. A wizard as powerful as Russell could easily trace his origins. Was there another reason? No longer dwelling on this question, Loki smiled bitterly. "I'm the opposite of you, Russell. I only have family in Asgard, no friends, but I'm not their biological child." For a moment, Loki felt only loneliness, listlessness, and lost the desire to communicate. Loki cut to the chase, abandoning pleasantries. "Russell, what brings you here?" Russell inwardly sighed. He'd initially hoped to persuade Loki to go to Kamartaj with words, but things had botched after just a few sentences. Lowering his expectations, he shifted from directly poaching Loki to first building rapport. Skipping the networking step, Russell directly invited, "Loki, would you be interested in spending some time in Kamartaj? The sorcerers there are all kind people, and they speak so pleasantly. I think you'll like it there." Kamartaj. Loki's eyes lit up, somewhat tempted. Loki had noticed Odin's high regard for Russell and the Ancient One. Befriending Russell and the Ancient One could help Asgard gather allies and stabilize the Nine Realms. Compared to Thor's reckless attack on Jotunheim, which nearly sparked war, this showed more regal bearing. Besides, Loki hadn't forgotten Odin's words to Thor: "A king must have power." Though unwilling to admit it, Loki knew he couldn't surpass Thor in strength, speed, or physique. As for magic, the spells taught to him by his mother, Frigga, made him the greatest sorcerer in the Nine Realms. But clearly, this title didn't include Russell and the Ancient One of Kamartaj. At that moment, a passage from Russell's bard form echoed in Loki's mind: the old god Agamotto, the Trinity of Vishanti, the origin of white magic. Each of these three words symbolized power. Thoughts raced through his mind, and Loki nodded. "Okay." Russell smiled slightly. "It's a deal." Once he got Loki to Kamartaj, he had plenty of ways to guide him into becoming a qualified, responsible, and dependable member of the Sorcerer Supreme. Loki was fundamentally different from the others in Asgard. Loki was a sorcerer. In Asgard, Loki was an unwelcome sorcerer. But in Kamartaj, he was a revered master of magic. Asgard couldn't give Loki respect, understanding, and trust, but Kamartaj could. Odin wouldn't let the frost giant sit on the Asgardian throne, but Russell dared to let Loki succeed as the Sorcerer Supreme. Compared to Asgard, the home that gave Loki a strong sense of unease, Kamartaj was mostly inhabited by displaced people. There, Loki could find everything except family. Odin, as always, stood in the golden palace overlooking Asgard. "My king," Frigga's voice came from behind Odin, "you've been absent-minded since yesterday. Has something happened? Odin was silent for a moment before slowly speaking. Loki knows about his origins. How could he know? Did the spell fail? Frigga was surprised, then realized. No, was it the trip to Jotunheim that exposed him to the power of the frost giants? Yes, Odin nodded slowly. My lord, have you been racking your brains these past few days about what to do with Loki? He's our son, Frigga asked worriedly, concerned that Odin might disown Loki, which would be detrimental to him. Odin sighed deeply. It's precisely because he's our son that I'm troubled. Hearing Odin's statement, Frigga breathed a sigh of relief and asked doubtfully, what's there to worry about? Loki's grown up now, so what if he knows his true parentage? We can't keep it from him forever. Loki also wants to be the king of Asgard, Odin said helplessly. But the throne cannot be given to him. Not even the chance to compete. Does your majesty feel guilty towards Loki? Frigga asked. Odin remained silent. To him, between king and father, he was first and foremost a king. Perhaps, Loki doesn't want to be the king of Asgard? He just wants your approval, to prove he's no less than Thor, Frigga said slowly. Perhaps you should give Loki a chance to prove himself. You should trust Thor, he is the people of Asgard's rightful leader. You should also trust Loki, his lust for power is far less than his love for his family. Odin looked at Frigga, his eyes narrowing slightly. He knew that his wife possessed a glimpse into the future. Chapter 60 The Test of Fairness. Odin rejected Frigga's suggestion. No, as king, I must distinguish between state affairs and family matters. Since Thor has been chosen as his successor, he shouldn't be changed arbitrarily before he makes a grave mistake, even if it's just for show. After a moment's thought, Odin added, however, I should indeed give Loki a chance to prove himself. What chance? Have you made any plans? Frigga asked. At that moment, Odin remembered Loki's words to him, my childhood will be spent in those competitions I could never win. You will only test Thor and me in strength, speed, and endurance, not in intelligence and magic. This time, let the rules favor Loki. I intend to send the two brothers as envoys to Kamartaj to strengthen the alliance between Asgard and Kamartaj. Odin solemnly revealed his plan. With Russell's display of power, Kamartaj held an increasingly important place in his heart. As evening fell, the celebration began. The Asgardian royal family officially announced a theme of the celebration, to celebrate the reconciliation between Asgard and Jotunheim. The deeds of Russell, Thor, Loki, and others in Jotunheim were also embellished and publicized. Asgard was instantly abuzz with excitement. When news of Russell's crushing defeat of Laufey, the Frost Giant King, spread like wildfire, and the Asgardian royal family remained silent, the Asgardians guessed that the news was likely true. Unbeknownst to them, their prince, the future monarch Thor, had led a small force alone in a great battle against the Frost Giants in Jotunheim and emerged victorious. The greatest contributor was most likely the sorcerer Russell. But the royal announcement still left them in disbelief. They had initially thought the accounts of Russell's achievements were exaggerated, but they never imagined that everything was absolutely true, even more terrifying than many people know. Well, there are two main versions of Russell's story. One comes from Fandral, one of the Warriors 3, who uttered it while playing with women. The other comes from Russell himself, who uttered it while playing the role of a bard. The second version is more authentic and accurate. Russell, Russell, Russell. As Russell and Loki entered together, waves of cheers erupted. 2 days ago, Russell was merely a royal guest in the eyes of the Asgardians. 2 days later, he was a hero. Even though he wasn't an Asgardian. Russell glanced at Loki beside him, his face filled with undisguised envy, jealousy, and disappointment. The Asgardian recognition he had sought for millennia had been won by Russell in just 2 days. To be precise, it was achieved with a resounding victory against the Frost Giants of Jotunheim. At this moment, Loki suddenly felt a surge of desire for war. He too wanted to defeat the Frost Giants. Even, to kill Laufey, the Frost Giant King. Loki's emotions were so intense that Russell, without consciously using his telepathic abilities, heard them clearly. This won't do. A mage's mental state is also crucial for cultivation, otherwise, he would be corrupted by the energy of another dimension, his mind twisted. One wrong move, and he might even become a servant of a dimensional demon. If Loki doesn't resolve his inner conflict, he'll find it difficult to become a powerful and stable sorcerer. Although worried, Russell didn't have a good solution. A mental illness requires a mental cure. Thor, Thor, Thor. Just then, cheers erupted from another direction. Russell looked over and saw Thor, Sif, and the Warriors 3 of Asgard. Loki also looked over, his expression somewhat grim. He could understand the Asgardians' cheers for Russell, though he was envious. After all, Russell had single-handedly turned the tide of battle. But Thor? Why? He was just a reckless brute, impulsive and rash, almost causing everyone's deaths at Jotunheim. Looking at Loki's expression, Russell inwardly groaned. He believed Loki had the potential to become the Sorcerer Supreme, and Loki had a huge advantage over Wanda, Tony, Steven, and others, a longer lifespan. But now it seemed his character flaws were too great. I just wanted to find a successor in advance, so there would be a seamless transition. Why is it so difficult? Let's go, Loki. Go say hello to Thor and the others. These words should have been said by Loki to Russell, but Loki's mind is too unstable right now, so Russell has to say them. Thor and the others also walked towards Russell and Loki. Seeing Russell and Loki together, Sif's eyes flashed with a strange light. The group met and greeted each other. Brother, why are you with Russell? Are you discussing magic? Before Loki could answer, Thor continued. Come on, let's go drink. It's a celebration, let's have some fun. With that, Thor flashed his signature smile, gesturing for Loki and Russell to go aside for a drink. It has to be said, when it comes to affability, the sunny and cheerful Thor completely outshines the melancholic and gloomy Loki. Having only known each other for a few days, both have left a deep impression on Russell. Coincidentally, their impressions are almost completely opposite. Like one active and the other passive, extroverted and introverted. Russell recalled a proverb from his hometown: oranges grown south of the Wire River are sweet oranges, but those grown north of it are bitter oranges. Perhaps, a change of environment could solve Loki's problem. No, this time we'll have tea, Russell said. Meat is good, but one indulgence is enough. Russell has no interest in wiping out Asgard again. The scene shifts back to Earth, New York. Having just finished training, Erin, catching her breath, asked Matt, how's the investigation into the hand going? You've seemed distracted during training these past few days. Matt shook his head and said in a deep voice, not very smoothly. We've pretty much figured out their influence and protectors in New York. But some of their influence is in Japan, and I can't find any information there. Without complete information, the NYPD and FBI can't take action against their influence in Japan. Eileen continued, so, Matt, what are you planning to do? Matt replied, I plan to go there myself and dig out the hand's influence in Japan. Won't that be dangerous? Eileen asked worriedly. They knew nothing about the hand's situation in Japan, and Matt's headlong into it could easily result in serious trouble. Don't worry, I have this. Matt raised his hand. In his hand was a pager personally made by Russell that couldn't be remotely detonated. If I encountered danger, I can call Russell, as long as it wasn't a direct comparison with Russell. Matt was quite confident in his abilities. He didn't think anyone in the hand could kill him instantly and prevent him from pressing the pager. There's another chapter coming up, around 7 or 8 o'clock. Chapter 61, Buy One Get One Free? After a few cups of mead, Loki seemed to have forgotten his earlier unpleasantness and started drinking with Thor. Ultimately, it was just a minor conflict between brothers, not a deep-seated hatred. Russell also started playing mahjong with the Warriors 3. Sif, meanwhile, performed a sword dance for everyone. Joyful times always fly by. Before long, Odin, Frigga, and the Ancient One arrived. Seeing the Ancient One's smiling face, Russell knew she must have received some favor from Odin. Russell, King of Gods, Queen of Gods, Sorcerer, Thor and Loki, Father, Queen of Gods, Sorcerer Supreme, Sif and the Warriors 3, King of Gods, Queen of Gods, Sorcerer Supreme, Russell, Thor, Loki, Sif, and the Warriors 3 greeted the three elders in turn. Although, strictly speaking, the Ancient One wasn't their elder. Odin, Frigga, and the Ancient One responded to everyone in their own ways. Master Russell, my son was trapped in Jotunheim, and I thank you for your rescue. Although Queen Frigga had already thanked Russell, Odin, as the master of Asgard, still mentioned it again as a matter of courtesy. You're too kind, Your Majesty. Kamar-Taj and Asgard have supported each other for many years, jointly protecting the peace between the real world and the magical dimension of the Nine Realms. Offering assistance is only right. Russell also repeated the polite words. After the formalities, Odin got straight to the point. Master Russell, your display of power in Jotunheim this time was truly impressive. I intend to send Thor and Loki to Kamartaj to learn some magical knowledge. I have already discussed this matter with the Ancient One. What are your thoughts, Master Russell? My thoughts, Russell asked in surprise, looking at the Ancient One. He wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme yet. Shouldn't the Ancient One decide such matters herself? The Ancient One explained, Russo, you are the future Sorcerer Supreme, so you naturally have the right to discuss this matter. Furthermore, what do you and Lord Thor think? Your opinions are also very important. Odin could disregard Thor and Loki's opinions because he was their father and accustomed to making decisions for his sons. The Ancient One, being an outsider, naturally couldn't ignore Thor and Loki's opinions. After hearing the Ancient One's explanation, Russell immediately nodded, I have no objection. Loki followed suit, nodding in agreement, I have no objection either. Russell and Loki had already discussed inviting Loki to Kamartaj for a while. Now that this opportunity had presented itself, they naturally had no objections. Thor, seeing Russell and Loki nodding in agreement one after the other, was momentarily dumbfounded. Loki, whose brother are you anyway? After a moment of stunned silence, Thor also nodded in agreement. Odin nodded in satisfaction. With the next generation getting along harmoniously, the relationship between Asgard and Kamartaj would be more secure. Moreover, he had heard a secret about Russell from the Ancient One. Russell wasn't Midgardian, and his lifespan was even longer than that of the Asgardians. This meant the stability of the alliance wouldn't be a concern. Furthermore, he continued, to encourage Thor and Loki to study diligently, I've commissioned the Ancient One to act as an assessor, evaluating and grading your progress. Hearing Odin's words, Loki's expression changed drastically, and he turned to stare intently at Odin, seemingly seeking confirmation from him. Odin, meeting Loki's gaze, slowly nodded. Loki's expression shifted unpredictably. From childhood, he had always compared himself to Thor in his areas of expertise. Now, his father had given him an opportunity to test his skills against Thor in his own field. For a moment, Loki's mind was in turmoil, unable to contain himself. Frigga stepped forward and patted Loki on the shoulder, feigning encouragement but actually offering comfort. Study hard in Kamartaj, win against Thor and prove yourself to your father. The simple-minded Thor didn't think so much about it, nor did he see anything wrong with the assessment. Don't let his carefree, sunny, and cheerful demeanor fool you into thinking he's a poor student. On the contrary, as the Prince of Asgard, Thor, groomed as his heir, is incredibly learned. In Avengers: Infinity War, he even understood Groot's little language. However, in ordinary times, his super brain would always tell him it was time to use his superpowers. The truly ignorant Russell gave this a thumbs up. But, wouldn't that be a buy one get one free deal? Russell pondered the possibility of recruiting Thor into the Sorcerer Supreme Order. What? Thor is a warrior, not a sorcerer? Sorcerer Supreme, as long as he can fight, who cares if he's a warrior or a sorcerer? After a moment's thought, Russell abandoned the idea of directly recruiting Thor into the Sorcerer Supreme Order. When Odin returned to Valhalla, Thor succeeded as King of Asgard. His primary identity would be king, no longer warrior. It's acceptable for him to occasionally support the Sorcerer Supreme's work. But asking him to abandon Asgardian affairs and permanently reside in Kamartaj to protect the world from magical corruption is out of the question. However, it's possible to develop Thor into an external ally of the Sorcerer Supreme. After discussing the important matters, Odin and the Ancient One left. As elders, they naturally wouldn't mingle with their nephews and nieces at the dinner table. Queen Frigga stayed behind, pulling Thor and Loki aside to instruct them on precautions after arriving in Kamartaj. Although Thor and Loki were already over 1,000 years old, in her eyes, they were still children. Yes, children over 1,000 years old. Earth, Sakura Island. Matt acted quickly, boarding a plane to Sakura Island the morning after telling Aaron he planned to go there to investigate. The investigation went more smoothly than Matt had expected. On Sakura Island, the Hand, as a society, openly conducted various commercial activities without any concealment. It seemed to be just an ordinary multinational business organization. The investigation's findings sent a chill down Matt's spine. The Hand had been established for nearly 500 years, and the organization's top leadership had remained unchanged. After evolving into an international organization in the modern era, they separated their criminal activities and named it Snake Root. Snake Root was a notorious ninja assassin group in Japan. Their members were mostly proficient in hand-to-hand combat, swordsmanship, disguise, escape, medicine, and explosives. They possessed superhuman willpower, endurance, and combat skills. They were experts in espionage and assassination, typically providing their professional services to warlords or the wealthy. In fact, if Russell hadn't directly revealed the hand's name, the clues he uncovered would have ultimately pointed to Snake Root. The hand, however, had completely distanced itself from the matter. Snake Root had multiple bases in Japan. He had already investigated several and planned to continue tonight. Sorry for the late post. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62: The Missing Mat. The celebration lasted 3 days and 3 nights before concluding. On the morning of the 4th day, everyone gathered at the Rainbow Bridge Control Center to bid farewell to Russell, the Ancient One, Thor, and Loki. Russell suddenly noticed something significant. Heimdall had stayed at the Rainbow Bridge Control Center for the past 3 days and hadn't attended the celebration. Now, seeing Heimdall, Russell remembered something and, without hesitation, got to the point. Heimdall, can I ask you for a favor? I want to find Thanos. Heimdall confirmed. Thanos, the master of the Black Order? That executioner who slaughtered indiscriminately in the name of balance. As he spoke, he activated a projection. In the projection was a tall titan with purple skin, a massive, vertically striped chin, a robust physique, wearing a blue and gold outfit with gold shoulder armor, gold boots, and a blue and gold helmet. Russell nodded. That's right, Heimdall agreed. Okay, I'll let you know when I find it. Russell, thank you. The Ancient One suddenly asked Russell, are you looking for Thanos because of the Mind Stone he possesses? Russell nodded. Yes. I plan to use the Mind Stone to activate the powers within Wanda and Pietro. The Mind Stone can enhance the user's own mental consciousness, awaken or enhance mental control powers such as telepathy and telekinesis, and enhance the user's existing mental superpowers. It also grants the user the ability to read others' thoughts, implant memories, illusions, and even control consciousness in the target's brain. Using it to awaken abilities in Wanda and Pietro would be a piece of cake. The Ancient One shook her head. No, using the Infinity Stones isn't that simple. The Infinity Stones themselves possess will and their own characteristics. The Mind Stone's characteristic is that it amplifies certain psychological traits. Because of her childhood experiences, Wanda places great importance on emotions, especially family ties. The Mind Stone will amplify this, making Wanda more unstable and easily influenced by emotional fluctuations. The previous paragraph was addressed to everyone. The following passage touches on the privacy of his disciple, which the Ancient One privately told Russell using her telepathic abilities. Russell frowned. He hadn't really noticed this. He frequently used the Time Stone, but it was a replica made by the Whitebird Ancient One, lacking the problems the Bald Ancient One mentioned. As for the real Infinity Stones, Russell had never encountered them. A replica? Seeing Russell deep in thought, Heimdall asked, do you still need to find Thanos? Russell nodded. Yes. I'm looking for Thanos not just for the Mind Stone. On one hand, Russell wanted to see what the real Infinity Stones, the Mind Stone, were like. And to study them, to see if he could replicate a Mind Stone, a replica, like the Whitebird Ancient One. On the other hand, Thanos was an unstable factor, a very unstable factor. If Russell stayed on Earth, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of Thanos coming after him. After his panel upgraded to the 3rd stage, Russell's perception became increasingly acute, exceeding common sense. He vaguely sensed that the power of the Infinity Stones was affecting him. Let alone a Thanos with only a blank slate or 1 or 2 Infinity Stones, he could still crush a Thanos with all 6 Infinity Stones in his collection. Except for super powerful Thanos like the heart of the universe. For Russell, this is the real universe, not a comic book. He doesn't know if such super powerful things exist. But Russell won't stay on Earth forever, or even in this universe forever. And the flow of time is different in different universes and dimensions. It's not impossible that he might encounter a situation like Ant-Man Scott Lang's, where 5 hours in the quantum realm is 5 years in the real world. In that case, there's a possibility Thanos would raid his home. He doesn't want to one day travel to another universe or magical dimension, only to return to find his home gone. Okay, Heimdall nodded in agreement, preparing to activate the Bifrost. A burst of 7-colored light enveloped them, and Russell and his companions disappeared from Asgard. Go gather intelligence on the Black Order, especially the location of its master, Thanos. After Russell and his group returned to Earth, Heimdall closed the Bifrost, sheathed his sword, and gave instructions to the guards. Although he possessed exceptionally keen superhuman senses, particularly excelling in vision and hearing, transcending spatial limitations, able to hear the shouts of Asgardian gods from any point in the universe across endless distances, this was the result of special attention. He could sense the life essence of the Asgardian gods. To personally search for Thanos in the vast sea of stars would be like finding a needle in a haystack. The seven-colored light dissipated, and Russell and his companions were teleported to Tunsberg, Norway. This was the place where, 1,000 years ago, the forces of Asgard and Midgard joined forces to fight Jotunheim. Heimdall's teleportation of them here was likely a deliberate arrangement by Odin, intended to imply to Russell that Asgard and Kamartaj had a deep and long-standing relationship. However, the ignorant Russell clearly failed to grasp Odin's deeper meaning. Those present were all Kamartaj's own people, the current Sorcerer Supreme, the Ancient One, the future Sorcerer Supreme, Russell, and Loki and Thor, members of the future Sorcerer Supreme. Russell didn't stand on ceremony. Once everyone was in position, he opened a portal and led the way back to Kamartaj. The others followed. Eileen was very anxious. 3 days ago, Matt suddenly lost contact with her. Realizing something was wrong, she immediately called Russell. Earth-made cell phones couldn't communicate across the vast interstellar space. Naturally, the call didn't go through. Unable to reach him by phone, Eileen went to Russell's bookstore in Queens, New York, to look for him in person, but he wasn't there. After discovering Russell wasn't there, she left a note at the bookstore. Then, she went to find other people who knew Russell, asking them if they had any contact information for him besides his phone number. Her frantic search for Russell alerted SHIELD, who were closely monitoring him. Mr. Carlson, you mean you have a way to contact Russell? Eileen looked at Carlson urgently. Matt's fate was unknown. She couldn't afford not to be anxious. Carlson nodded, then shook his head. Eileen, SHIELD doesn't have a direct way to contact Russell, but there's someone who might. Eileen, who? Carlson, Iron Man, Tony Stark. He might have a way. SHIELD files clearly state that Tony was assassinated by Dr. Pym, his body dying. Afterwards, his soul left his body. Guiding Pepper Potts, dressed in the Mark II suit, to a building in New York. Soon after, Russell arrived at Stark Tower and revived Tony. Unfortunately, when the SHIELD agents found the building, they were met with hostility. Tony Stark, Iron Man, Eileen murmured. She remembered, Tony had attended the Christmas Eve party last year wearing his Iron Man suit. Chapter 63. Sometimes, being proactive is not as good as being reactive. Passing through the portal, the group arrived at the courtyard of Kamartaj. Under a tree in the corner of the courtyard sat Russell's personal wooden rocking chair. Unlike Asgard, where it was still morning, Kamartaj was now bathed in twilight. Russell walked over, lay down in the rocking chair, and enjoyed the beauty of the twilight. Meanwhile, the Ancient One began explaining to the two princes of Asgard. Unlike the wizards of Asgard who draw energy from the World Tree, human wizards draw energy from the multiverse. The Ancient One took out a book and handed it to Thor and Loki. This book is Vedic, from beginner to expert. Vedic is a language summarized and compiled by the Sorcerer Supreme, used to communicate with the energy of the multiverse and cast spells. You can also think of it as a programming language. It's essential knowledge for reading spellbooks and casting advanced spells. Thor and Loki took the book, saying simultaneously, Vedic is an elective course in Asgard. We've already studied it. The Ancient One nodded, not surprised. As princes of Asgard, Thor and Loki naturally couldn't be completely ignorant of magic. Odin summoned them to Kamartaj not primarily for learning, but to cultivate relationships with the Kamartaj sorcerers and understand their allies. The apparent task of learning was merely to compensate Loki, giving him a chance to compete with Thor in his area of expertise. In that case, you can browse the library yourselves afterwards. If there's anything you don't understand, you can refer to this book. After saying that, the Ancient One took out 2 more sling rings. These are sling rings. They can open portals, allowing you to travel freely to various places. Portals. Thor and Loki's eyes lit up. This was Kamartaj's signature spell. After Thor and Loki put on the sling rings, the Ancient One began to demonstrate, reminding them, Concentrate, draw circles while visualizing your destination in your mind. A spark appeared, then connected to form a circle, creating a portal. On the other side of the portal was Norway, the land they had just come from. Thor, seeing this, began to experiment. Without the guidance of the sling ring, portal magic is an extremely complex and difficult spell. But with a sling ring, for a transcendent being, it's as simple as drawing a circle in the air. Thor drew a circle with his hand. A portal formed, but the other side was empty space. He drew another circle, and it was the same. Thor frowned. Strange, I clearly thought of Asgard, but why is the portal's destination wrong? The Ancient One explained, the space-time around Asgard is protected by a barrier, making it difficult to pinpoint the location successfully. You enter and exit through a portal. As soon as the Ancient One finished speaking, Loki opened a portal directly to Asgard. Raising an eyebrow, Loki glanced at Thor with a smug look. Just as Loki's portal was completed, a gaze fell on Kamartaj. It was Heimdall. He had just sensed someone bypassing the Asgardian barrier to open a portal. Seeing that it was Thor and Loki, Heimdall nodded, looked away, and ignored them. Thor put his arm around Loki and asked curiously, Loki, how did you do that? As expected of my brother, you solved such a difficult problem in no time. Ancient One looked at Loki with slight surprise. The word difficult was relative to other sorcerers. If she wanted to, she could easily do it. Otherwise, why would she be called the Sorcerer Supreme? But Loki, on his first encounter with the sling ring and using the portal, accomplished something ordinary sorcerers couldn't, demonstrating his magical talent. Even though he was already a master of the Asgardian magic system. Russell's offered talent is surprisingly good. Loki smiled smugly, offering no explanation. He had previously discovered a secret passage that allowed him to bypass the barrier and enter-exit Asgard. When casting portal spells, he could also use this secret passage for precise location. Mr. Stark, please, I have urgent business with Russell. Tony frowned slightly as he looked at Coulson and Aaron in front of him. He knew exactly how to find Russell, but he wouldn't bother him for the sake of SHIELD. Russell had saved him multiple times, he hadn't repaid his debt yet. From Tony's perspective, Russell had saved him 3 times. The first time was when he was poisoned by palladium. Russell introduced him to a sorcerer to solve the problem. The second time was when he was attacked by Dr. Pym and brain dead. Russell used the time stone to reverse time and resurrect him. The third time was in the quantum realm, facing Mephisto, where Russell came to his rescue. Although he had agreed to join the Avengers and become a special advisor to SHIELD, would a mere ordinary job make him reveal his benefactor's friend request? Impossible. Seeing Tony's unmoved expression, Coulson reacted and quickly explained, Tony, it's not SHIELD looking for Russell, it's Aaron. Aaron, tell Tony what's going on. Aaron. Tony carefully examined the little girl before him, pondering the name. It sounded familiar. I remember now, you're the girl who was bitten by a vampire and then healed. Right. Eileen, who was about to explain, nodded quickly upon hearing Tony's words. Yes, that's me, let's go then. Having confirmed that Eileen was Russell's friend and not someone from SHIELD, Tony didn't press her for further explanation. He took out his slingshot and opened a portal. Seeing Coulson wanting to follow, Tony instructed, Coulson, you can come too. Put down the tracking device, the recorder, and the listening device. The people over there don't want to expose themselves. The portal didn't open directly into the courtyard, but rather at the entrance. Tony led the way, pushing open the door and entering. Behind the door was the courtyard where Russell and the others were. Russell's gaze swept over them, seeing Tony and Eileen and Coulson behind him. Hey, Eileen. Why are you with Tony? Did something happen to Matt? Seeing Eileen, Russell immediately sensed something was wrong. Matt had a pager to contact Russell. He didn't need to go through Tony's channels to find her. Besides, getting involved with SHIELD was never a good thing. Russell, Matt is missing. Why? After searching for several days, Eileen finally met Russell. As soon as she spoke, she couldn't help but choke up. Matt, he's missing. Russell frowned. In terms of warnings of danger, being proactive is never as good as being reactive. Seeing Eileen choke up and sob uncontrollably, Coulson explained on her behalf, Mr. Matt Murdock went to Sakura Island 4 days ago to investigate the Hand and its subordinate organization, Serpent Root. 3 days ago, Mr. Murdock went missing. The Hand, Sakura Island, Russell muttered a few words, then comforted Eileen. "Don't worry, Eileen. I'll go and bring Matt back right now." The next moment, Russell disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already over an island. Chapter 64. Where did Matt go? Kamar Taj, East 6th District. Calson's gaze swept around, quickly settling on a bald woman in a robe, exuding an aura of otherworldly elegance. Calson approached her somewhat awkwardly and asked, "Hello, are you the Ancient One?" The Ancient One smiled and nodded. "Yes," Calson asked, "may I report on Russell's actions just now?" The Ancient One didn't answer, but simply smiled and handed Calson a slip of paper. Calson took the slip, puzzled. "What's this?" The Ancient One replied, "The Wi-Fi password for Kamar Taj. Ordinary signals can't enter or leave Kamar Taj. You can't make phone calls without Wi-Fi." Calson was speechless. Calson said, "Thank you, Ancient One." Calson tried it first, finding that even satellite phones couldn't make calls. He then connected to Wi-Fi and entered the password from the slip of paper. East 9th District, Sakura Island. Due to the time zone, it was already night on Sakura Island, the city lights just coming on. Russell stood atop a manor, looking down. The patrolling security personnel and various electronic devices couldn't detect his presence. Releasing his mental energy, Russell quickly located the pager he had given Matt. The pager was intact, in Matt's pants pocket, his lower pocket. Russell's face was grim, his eyes blazing with barely suppressed rage. He retrieved the time stone, and like a movie rewinding, the surrounding scene rapidly shifted, quickly freezing on the night 3 days prior. Matt, disguised as Daredevil in a tight-fitting suit, infiltrated the manor under the cover of darkness. Everything went smoothly. Matt successfully confirmed that this manor was the Hand's base. Just as he was leaving, a dark shadow flashed by. With a splatter of blood, Matt's upper body vanished. Russell vaguely heard chewing sounds. Boom! A silent roar erupted as the enraged Russell unleashed his mental energy, directly invading the minds of everyone in the manor. He roughly sifted through all information related to that dark shadow. Ah! A piercing scream echoed throughout the manor. The Hand members felt a splitting headache, wishing they could smash their brains open to relieve the pain. The evil god worshipped by the Hand, the primal demon, beast. How could he descend upon Earth? How could he possibly descend upon Earth? Russell considered a possibility. Coincidentally, the Ancient One had left Earth at this time to visit Asgard. But Earth was still protected by the three sanctums. With Beast's abilities alone, it was impossible to bypass the protection of the three sanctums and enter and leave Earth silently. After obtaining the necessary information, Russell clenched his fist and collected half of Matt's body. His spiritual power surged forth, sweeping across the globe. Beast has already left Earth. Matt's upper body and soul had been swallowed by Beast and taken away from this universe, making resurrection with the time stone impossible. This is just an ordinary base of the Hand. There are no high-ranking members who can contact Beast. Keeping him here is useless. The next instant, energy surged, and the two extras were thrown into the distance. Then, as if a gaping abyss had split open, the Earth swallowed the entire manor. Then the Earth closed, churning and crushing everything in its path. Screams and howls were drowned out by the rumbling of the Earth. Moments later, the former manor was a desolate wasteland. With a single step, Russell vanished, arriving at another location on Sakura Island. Tonight, he would search every place until he found a way to contact the beasts. Connecting to the Wi-Fi, Calson immediately dialed Nick Fury's number to report the news. The call was answered instantly. "Calson, Director Fury, this is Calson. Irene and I, with Tony's help, went to Kamar Taj and met Russell. He's already gone to Sakura Island to investigate Matt Murdock's disappearance. Should we have our agents cooperate with him?" "No need." Nick Fury's voice was weary. Russell has already taken matters into his own hands. Upon learning of the disappearance of Russell's friend Matt Murdock, SHIELD dispatched resources to Sakura Island to investigate. Finding the truth would allow them to curry favor with Russell and strengthen their relationship, bringing them one step closer to recruiting him as an Avenger. However, just moments ago, SHIELD's technical department detected energy fluctuations in Russell and quickly reported it to Nick Fury. Analysis of the energy fluctuation curve indicated that Russell's energy was unstable, most likely indicating he was in a state of rage. Considering the location, Sakura Island, and the recent intelligence regarding Russell, Nick Fury quickly deduced the situation. Russell's friend Matt Murdock had been killed while investigating the hand on Sakura Island, and Russell, enraged, was seeking revenge. After sharing his analysis with Coulson, Nick Fury said, "This incident is probably over. Stay at Kamartaj for a while longer and convey SHIELD's goodwill to Russell when he returns. Just tell them SHIELD will help him smooth over the secular impact." Hanging up the phone, Nick Fury rubbed his temples. He had thought that as long as Russell remained in New York, SHIELD would have plenty of opportunities to win him over. Unexpectedly. Sigh. Director Fury, we've detected Russell's energy fluctuations again. Just as Nick Fury was feeling down, his subordinate's report interrupted his musings. Quickly getting back to work, Nick Fury said, "Again? Is Russell going to retaliate against the entire hand? Pass the word down to have our agents quickly evacuate the hand's territory to avoid being caught in the crossfire." Director Fury, another agent burst into the office. The Sakura Island agents reported that they were just thrown out of the hand base by some unknown energy. When they returned to check, the hand base had been razed to the ground. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief. This was actually good news, indicating that Russell hadn't lost his mind and could still distinguish friend from foe, deliberately letting the SHIELD agents go. It also indirectly proved Russell's stability. It was just a pity that such a powerful figure was unwilling to join the Avengers. Nick Fury sighed again. He had missed out on the strongest Avenger before, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. It wasn't that he hadn't tried, but Carol had been brainwashed by the Kree's supreme intelligence and had lived in space for a long time. Although she regained her memories after returning to Earth, her sense of belonging to Earth was very weak. And this time, he had missed out on another strongest Avenger, the Sorcerer Russell. Unlike last time, if he tried just a little harder this time, he might succeed. Director Fury, Russell's energy fluctuations have been detected again. Director Fury, Russell's energy fluctuations have been detected again. Director Fury, Russell's energy fluctuations have been detected yet again. It seems Russell really intends to purge the entire hand. Nick Fury pondered how tomorrow's news would report on Sakurajima. Suddenly, something occurred to him, and he hurriedly said, "Quick! Notify the agents in New York to launch an operation and wipe out all the hand members." Chapter 65 I've found you. Quick! Notify the agents in New York to launch an operation and wipe out all the hand members. Nick Fury remembered that the three fingers of the hand, Alexandra, Mrs. Goose, and Beast-Man, were in New York. If SHIELD cooperated with the FBI and the NYPD to take down these three fingers and capture Mrs. Goose, Alexandra, and Beast-Man, that would be a political achievement. If Russell intervened, it would create a huge commotion, turning it into a supernatural event, and SHIELD would be blamed. Nick Fury, of course, wouldn't make the wrong choice. After thinking for a moment, Nick Fury added to his subordinates, "Get Hawkeye, Natasha, and Blade involved as well. The hand's leader possesses mysterious powers, ordinary agents can't handle them." Then, he picked up the phone he had just hung up and called Coulson back. The call connected quickly. "Nick Fury, Coulson, find a way to contact Russell. Tell him that SHIELD will handle the hand's influence in New York. SHIELD will also help him capture the three fingers of the hand alive, and deal with them when he returns. Let him focus on dealing with the situation on Sakura Island and not worry about New York." Coulson, yes, Director Fury, as a veteran agent, he naturally understood the deeper meaning in Nick Fury's words. Helping Russell deal with the hand in New York was clearly a subtle way of advising him not to cause trouble in New York. A bewildered Tony asked, "What is the hand?" Coulson explained, "The hand is a mysterious ninja cult involved in organized crime. It was formed about 500 years ago by 5 people. These 5 leaders are also known as the Fingers. They are Alexandra, Madame Goose, Bottom, Sawenda, and Murakami. They are suspected to have lived from 500 years ago to the present day." After hearing Coulson's explanation, Tony was even more confused. 500 years? Is this an organization formed by 5 extraordinary beings? In Tony's understanding, someone who can live for 500 years is definitely not an ordinary person. Coulson nodded, yes. All 5 leaders of the hand possessed combat abilities beyond those of ordinary people. Tony confirmed with Nick Fury on the other end of the phone. "Director Fury, you just said there are 3 hand leaders in New York." "That's right," Nick Fury confirmed. Tony frowned. "Are you prepared?" Don't make too much of a commotion in the city, Nick Fury sighed. Even if we make a big commotion, it won't be as big as Russell's. I'll send the footage to Jarvis, you can take a look yourself. After listening, Tony pointed his wristwatch at the wall. Jarvis, pull up the data. Yes, sir. A beam of light flashed, and Jarvis projected the image onto the wall. The image showed 7 ruins, razed to the ground, with blood gushing from beneath. Ding dong, now there are 8. Tony was stunned. He had just brought his men to find Russell, but Russell had left in a hurry after only a few words. And this commotion had already occurred in just a few minutes. Could they have discussed it properly first? Send me the address of the Hands 3 Fingers in New York, I'll go help too. Tony understood. Nick Fury was right. Even if they acted, the commotion wouldn't be as big as Russell's. Our base on Sakura Island has been destroyed in 7 or 8 places. What happened? In a private room of an ordinary internet cafe on Sakura Island, Murakami, one of the Hands leaders, was having a video conference with 4 others. He was too frightened to return to any Hand properties. Alexandra in the video questioned, Murakami, shouldn't we be asking you that? Who did you mess with? Murakami's voice was panicked and disoriented. I don't know. How could I dare to provoke such a terrifying being? Alexandra spat angrily, her spittle seemingly about to leap through the screen. 10 minutes. In less than 10 minutes, 8 bases have been destroyed. Now you tell me, you don't even know who you've provoked. Murakami, how did you become the leader of the Hand? At this moment, Madame Gao coldly said, Murakami, run. Abandon the properties on Sakura Island and hide. Murakami remained silent, nodding in agreement. Oh no, Alexandra suddenly exclaimed, someone has attacked me, and this incident isn't just targeting Murakami. Almost simultaneously, Madame Gao and the Bottom's forces were also besieged. Seeing that the others had also been attacked, Murakami said helplessly, abandon all properties and run. This opponent is beyond our capabilities. In these 500 years, we have encountered opponents we couldn't handle. Running away won't solve the problem, but time will. After a moment's hesitation, Alexandra spoke, but we don't have many dragon bones left. This time isn't on our side. Madame Go also remained silent. It was easy to persuade Murakami to abandon his business and run away, but difficult for her to do it herself. Not many dragon bones left? It's alright, you won't need them anymore. Russell's voice rang out behind Murakami. Don't you know, this is the information age. When communicating online, don't use plain text for important information. You old folks, just now, communications between New York and Sakura Island were being monitored by SHIELD. When the keyword Murakami appeared frequently, the video call of the 5 Hand members was noticed by SHIELD's technical department. After confirming and locking the IP address, SHIELD informed Russell. This led to Russell catching the 5 Hand members who were about to give up everything and go into hiding. Before Murakami could react, Russell's mental energy directly pierced his brain and began to examine it. Torture? Not a chance. Soon, Russell found the Hand's memories of sacrificing to the beast to gain power. From these memories, he extracted the ritual and runes for communicating with the beast. Judging from the memories, the Hand's frequency of sacrificing to the beast was quite high, and the locations were all near Sakura Island. In fact, the beast had even appeared in its true form multiple times. And Kamar Taj knew nothing about this. It seems there are bad guys on Sakura Island. After finding the method to communicate with the beast, a cold glint flashed in Russell's eyes. Why not be a decent person and instead worship an evil god? Then become one with your god. In the next instant, Russell used energy to outline runes to communicate with the beast. As for the sacrifice, Murakami said he was willing to help. The runes flashed, and a mysterious wave was sent towards a certain place deep in the dimension. Russell separated a wisp of his spiritual power and quietly followed. He wasn't going to foolishly wait for the beast's response. He wanted to find it himself, to locate the beast's position in the endless dimensions. Then, he would destroy it. Outside the universe, in the endless dimensions. Without any reference points, time and space seemed to have lost their meaning here. But Russell knew this was just an illusion. A moment later, the wisp of his spiritual power followed the mysterious wave and arrived in a void. I found you, Primal Demon Beast. Chapter 66. A mere primordial demon, watch me refine it in an instant. Russell's wisp of spiritual power followed the peculiar fluctuations and arrived at a dimensional dimension adjacent to Universe 404. Locking onto the coordinates, Russell attempted to open a portal. This dimensional dimension belongs to the beasts. I wonder if the portal can be opened. If not, I'll have to travel there slowly. As expected, the portal spell was blocked. But this didn't deter Russell. Russell simulated the Vishanti's special magical power with a wisp of spiritual power he had infiltrated. He tried again, and the portal opened successfully. Taking a step forward, Russell directly entered the beast's dimensional dimension. His spiritual power swept across it, roughly calculating that this dimensional dimension was about 3 light-years in diameter and about the size of the solar system. However, the dimensional dimension appeared extremely empty. At the center of the dimension was a gigantic sphere, like a planet. Countless souls floated on the sphere. Matt's soul was among them. With a flash, Russell appeared above the gigantic sphere. He swept his spiritual power around it, collecting Matt's soul and nurturing it with attribute point energy. Who? How dare you trespass into the hell of the great beast god? A tremendous voice resounded throughout the entire dimension. Following his senses, Russell saw a demon the size of a mountain, radiating an aura of evil. The aura of hell. Russell frowned. He sensed an aura somewhat similar to Mephisto's emanating from this primordial demon, the beast. However, it wasn't as pure as Mephisto's. Matt's soul had been retrieved, and Russell's mood relaxed slightly. Hell, your hell, Russell chuckled, mockingly. Hell naturally possesses the authority to guide souls. But judging from the souls in your wretched place, they don't seem to have been naturally guided. The beast seemed to have been struck on a sore spot by Russell, and roared in fury, "Damn insect, how dare you disrespect the great beast god? Are you here to die?" The beast roared, unleashing a beam of crimson energy towards Russell. Russell smiled dismissively, neither dodging nor avoiding it. The crimson energy approached Russell, like a clay ox sinking into the sea, causing not a ripple, like throwing a meat bun to a dog. "It's gone forever, how is this possible?" Seeing that the energy attack had no effect on Russell, the beast cried out in disbelief. Suddenly, spikes shot out from the massive sphere beneath Russell's feet, hurtling towards him in midair. A sly smile of triumph spread across the beast's large face. It had encountered opponents with high magic resistance many times over the long term and had plenty of ways to deal with them. Russell frowned slightly, remaining neither dodging nor evading. Countless spikes struck Russell one after another. Unfortunately for his clothes, the moment they touched Russell's body, these spikes lost all kinetic energy, their speed dropping to 0, falling straight down. They couldn't even move Russell an inch, only slightly soiling his clothes. "Is this your method? Great beast god," Russell mocked, completely disregarding the beast. "You're not even as good as one of Mephisto's avatars. Even a Lord of Hell has his limitations." After a brief exchange, Russell had already determined this. The beast's strength was slightly weaker than Mephisto's clone, making it easily manageable. Mephisto, mentioning that name. The beast's tone was filled with deep resentment and fear. "Oh, judging from your tone, you know old Mephisto," Russell sneered, then added insult to injury. "If I'm not mistaken, you're no longer the Lord of the Hell Dimension, are you? Your hell has long been swallowed up by other Hell Lords. This is just a fragment, damn bug," the beast roared, its true form moving, slamming its hand down at Russell. Russell gathered divine power within him, meeting the blow with his fist. Bang! Top against bottom, large against small. Palm and fist, each carrying unparalleled power, collided. The collision of two fists and palms of completely different sizes unleashed terrifying energy fluctuations. In the next instant, the situation completely shifted to one side. Swoosh! A piercing sound rang out as Russell, moving with his fist, struck through the beast's massive hand from below. Roar! The beast cried out in pain as its hand was torn apart. But as crimson energy surged in the space, the beast's hand quickly recovered, and its aura did not diminish in the slightest. Russell flew upwards until his line of sight was level with the beast. "I'm tired of this game. It's time to send you on your way." Although it was a fallen beast, it was undoubtedly a dimensional lord. Russell had previously encountered two-dimensional lords, the Blood God and Mephisto. Unfortunately, Russell had never directly fought them in their dimensions. This encounter with a beast filled the gap in Russell's experience. With his goal achieved, Russell no longer held back. Whoosh! Russell's speed increased dramatically, and with a dash, he crashed directly into the beast's body. He began to wreak havoc, tearing and shattering the beast's body. At the same time, his talent, energy absorption, was fully activated. In an instant, Russell became like a black hole, frantically devouring the energy that had dissipated when the beast was injured. "You monster!" The beast's face was filled with terror. At this moment, his body was weakening, and his energy was rapidly draining away. The beast struggled, trying to force Russell out of its body, while simultaneously gathering energy from within the dimension to repair itself. The crimson energy in the surrounding space, summoned, surged forth, attempting to heal the beast's body. However, the speed of repair was far outpaced by the speed of Russell's destruction. The beast's resistance grew weaker and weaker. Seeing that it could not force Russell out, the beast roared in grief and rage. The next moment, the energy drawn from the dimension was no longer used for healing, but instead accumulated and operated in a specific manner. The beast, "Come out, I want to negotiate with you." Russell remained unmoved. "What do you want?" "We can talk about anything," the beast continued. "This hell dimension? Or subjugate me, the Lord of Hell?" Russell remained unmoved. At this moment, the crimson energy formed a mysterious rune filled with a dangerous aura. "This rune can detonate the entire hell dimension." The beast's voice was filled with madness. "Come out and talk. Or die together." This time, Russell finally responded to the beast. "This rune, is it the control center of this hellish dimension?" "Beast God, you're such a good person, even in your dying moments you taught me how to control this dimension." Russell observed, analyzed, and learned as the mysterious rune condensed. The moment the rune took shape, Russell also cracked the beast's method of controlling this dimension. "Let's die together." The beast hardened its heart and activated the rune. It refused to believe that Russell could seize its control over this dimension simply by watching it condense the rune. Boom. Before the dimension exploded, the beast first detonated its body to prevent it from becoming Russell's shield. Seeing the beast's voluntary disintegration, Russell didn't hold back, fully activating its talent, ability Absorption. "A mere primordial demon, watch me refine it in an instant." Chapter 67, A God Descended to Save Us. Just as the primordial demon beast spontaneously disintegrated, mysterious runes ignited, flashing crimson light and setting the massive sphere beneath Russell's feet ablaze. A terrifying energy fluctuation emanated from it. Russell frowned. The massive sphere beneath his feet was the center of this dimension. Most of the dimensional space's mass and energy resided within it. Once detonated, it would completely destroy this dimensional space, triggering space-time turbulence. The adjacent universe 404 would also be impacted by the space-time storm, especially the solar system. If the chain reaction ignited the sun, the entire solar system would likely be reduced to cosmic dust. "I can't just walk away and ignore it," Russell decided, using the runes he had just learned to try and calm the energy fluctuations of the massive sphere. With Russell's efforts, the energy fluctuations gradually subsided. Just then, a black shadow over 10 meters in size burst out of the dimensional space and entered the super vortex. The beast's clone. "Even a centipede dies hard," Russell cursed under his breath. He also understood why the beast's strength was abnormal. Within its own domain, it was weaker than Mephisto's external avatar. It seemed the beast's true form had died when it was absorbed into its hellish dimension. Only an avatar survived. No wonder its mind was somewhat unstable. The one fleeing now was another avatar, the same beast that had descended to Earth. Once the energy fluctuations of the giant sphere further decreased, rendering it unable to destroy the dimensional space, Russell deliberately detonated it to save time. Then, he too rushed out of the dimensional space, entered the super vortex, and chased after the fleeing beast. To eradicate it completely, to eliminate evil at all costs. The super vortex is both the space between parallel universes and the membrane of the entire multiverse. It separates parallel universes while simultaneously enveloping the entire multiverse. In addition, the super vortex possesses many strange spatial characteristics. It is the space of dreams, the birthplace of concepts, and an informational space. At this moment, a chase was unfolding in the super vortex near Universe 404. The beast changed direction several times, trying to shake off Russell, but found Russell getting closer and closer. Clearly, its speed was inferior to Russell's. Continuing to flee would mean being caught soon. Helpless, it had no choice but to plunge into Universe 404, hoping to receive aid from its allies. Earth, near the coast of Sakura Island, above the sea. A special rift appeared, and the beast squeezed out. "Help me!" Russell followed closely behind, also rushing out. One hand gripped the beast's head, and it charged straight down. Crack, accompanied by a sonic boom. Russell slammed the beast's head heavily onto the sea surface, then continued downwards, crashing into the seabed. The beast roared, but it couldn't break free from Russell's grasp. Thump thump thump. With its left hand still holding the beast's head, Russell clenched its right fist and relentlessly punched the beast. Each collision of its fist and the beast created a tremendous roar, whipping up huge waves on the sea surface. A moment later, the beast's energy was exhausted, unable to repair its injuries. Its body became ethereal and finally dissipated completely. Russell rose and leaped out of the water, letting out a long sigh. He'd finally resolved part of the matter. By tomorrow morning, he could take Matt back to give Aaron an explanation. Although, it was only Matt's soul. Thinking about this made Russell feel uneasy. His pager was fine. No problem. If triggered, he could definitely arrive at the scene within a second. Normally, with Matt's heightened senses, he wouldn't be instantly killed if he couldn't press the pager. Even if Matt was killed before he could press the pager, he could resurrect Matt with a time stone. But Matt had encountered an evil god who had conveniently taken his upper body, especially his brain, out of the universe and into another dimension. Russell, something's happened, the Ancient One's voice suddenly came, reminding Russell to look outside. Russell asked in confusion, "What's going on?" The Ancient One replied, "Look for yourself." Russell looked around and noticed something was wrong. When Russell beat up the beast on the bottom of the sea, the water shook, forming waves of huge waves. Afterwards, huge waves rushed towards the shore. It was June, the hot season, and the coast was crowded. If a huge wave were to capture it, there would probably be numerous casualties. At this time, the crowd playing on the shore also noticed something unusual. A rumble came from the sea, like rolling thunder. After a while, the noise became louder and louder, and a white line appeared where the water and the sky met. Tsunami, run! Several shouts rang out, and the crowd instantly became excited. Scrambling, I ran towards the beach. The white line quickly approached, gradually lengthened, thickened, and crossed the sea. Getting closer, I saw the waves rolling, forming a water wall tens of meters high. It's over, we can't run away. None of us can run away. Someone fell to the ground and gave up struggling. Such huge waves, tens of meters high, will destroy everything in their path. The coast, and the cities along it. Just when the waves were about to sweep over the shore and swallow up the crowd, a figure suddenly appeared before the giant wave. After appearing, the figure simply raised his right hand. The next second, the wave stopped rolling, as if frozen. Crack, crack, crack. Ice first appeared on the crest of the wave, gradually spreading throughout the entire giant wave, until the entire sea surface was frozen. A miracle. This is a miracle. People who had collapsed to the ground, awaiting death, people who had felt the giant wave approaching and turned back in terror. Witnessing this scene, they were stunned. God, a god descended to save us, Wadatsumi. It must be the sea god Wadatsumi. He descended to save us. On the shore, more and more people discovered the frozen giant wave and the sea surface. Witnessing the miracle, having escaped death, they knelt and cheered, calling upon a god. However, Russell frowned. He had caused this giant wave, and it was perfectly reasonable for him to resolve it. He didn't need anyone's gratitude. But, Wadatsumi? What was that? The sea god of the island nation? Was this taking advantage of me? You're celebrating too soon. I still have a score to settle with your divine calculations. I hope your Mayan Jinjian isn't among them. Otherwise, meanwhile, aboard the space carrier, the Avengers, having completed their mission, gathered together and witnessed this scene via satellite. Fuck, holy shit, is this something a sorcerer can do? The entire sea surface is frozen. The Avengers stared at the scene before them in disbelief. This isn't something a sorcerer can do. Tony was speechless. If he didn't explain, his teammates might think he was a fraud. Sorcerers aren't as magical as you think. A normal sorcerer just opens a portal and summons energy weapons to fight. Nick Fury looked at Russell on the screen, his eyes gleaming. This was the image of the strongest Avenger in his mind. No matter what the crisis, he could easily handle it. Chapter 68 SHIELD warmly welcomes Sorcerer Russell. Nepal, Kamartaj. Midday, the sun blazing. Most of the mages had finished their morning practice and were now chatting in small groups. Just as authors in an author group never talk about writing, readers in a reader group don't talk about novels. The mages, gathered together, didn't talk about magic, but gossiped about the events of the past few days. Calcin mingled among them, quite popular, thanks to SHIELD's intelligence network. Callison could easily learn the truth and inside stories of various gossip. Eileen sat in Russell's personal wooden rocking chair, her brow furrowed. A few days ago, Russell had promised her he would bring Matt back. Unexpectedly, Russell had been gone for several days without a trace. Ring ring suddenly, Callison's phone rang. After gesturing apologetically to the mages chatting nearby, Callison went aside and answered the phone. No, Chief Fury? Yes, Chief Fury? Yes, Chief Fury. The call ended, and Callison walked to Eileen's side, saying, Eileen, don't worry. Russell has appeared and should be back soon. As soon as Callison finished speaking, Russell appeared out of thin air. Russell, Eileen exclaimed upon seeing Russell, then asked, where's Matt? Russell smiled awkwardly. Bringing Matt's soul back should count as bringing Matt back, right? Russell waved his hand in front of Eileen's eyes, granting her the ability to sense souls. Then, he released Matt's soul. After being nurtured by Russell's attribute point energy for over 10 minutes, Matt's soul had recovered from its daze. Matt is here. With that, Russell stepped aside, leaving the space to Matt and Eileen. Callison followed and extended an invitation to Russell. Russell, could you please come to the SHIELD space carrier? Everyone has a lot of questions for you about the hand. How long has it been since I left? Russell didn't answer, but instead asked another question. He had noticed the time discrepancy when he returned to Earth 404 from the hypercyclone. From the start of the operation, sweeping the hand base, searching for the beast's contact information, to entering the dimensional dimension, defeating the beast, and chasing it down in the hypercyclone, the entire event, in Russell's perception, took no more than half an hour, quite efficient. But when he returned to Sakura Island on Earth 404, it was already afternoon. Clearly, he had entered a region with a different time flow than Earth 404. Callison quickly calculated and gave the answer, about 66 hours, only 2 or 3 days. Russell breathed a sigh of relief. Callison, just let SHIELD know, we'll open a portal and be there right away. Russell was a polite person. Normally, he wouldn't teleport to his master's home without their permission, unlike Tony. Okay, Callison said, his voice slightly excited. He felt that SHIELD had taken a small step in recruiting Russell. This was a small step for SHIELD, but a giant leap for world peace. Callison dialed Nick Fury's number, briefly explained the situation, and received permission. A golden spark flashed, and a portal adorned with intricate dragon and phoenix carvings opened. Sparks occasionally fell, like dancing leaves. This was Russell's portal version 3.0. Space helicopter, conference room. Everyone looked at the portal before them, their gazes involuntarily turning to Tony. Why is your portal's style so different? Finally, Natasha asked the question. Tony's lips twitched. The effect is the same. No need to make it fancy, like street magic. Following Callison, Russell stepped out of the portal and teased, is it unnecessary, or impossible? Tony, of course it's unnecessary. Snap, with a snap of his fingers, the portal swiftly closed. Residual sparks drifted down like a shower of petals. Wow, so beautiful, Natasha couldn't help but exclaim. Russell looked in the direction of the voice, a flash of amazement in his eyes, momentarily stunned. The tight-fitting combat suit accentuated her curves, highlighting her figure. Her short, bright blonde hair gave her a sharp look. Her face was delicate and alluring. A patch of snow-white skin dazzled at her neck and chest. No wonder that handsome young basketball superstar suddenly had the idea to drink her bathwater. Noticing Russell's gaze, Natasha winked knowingly. Something's not right. Russell quickly regained his composure. It wasn't the first time he'd met Natasha. Russell had seen Natasha when she infiltrated Tony's side as his personal assistant under the alias Natalie. If Natasha was undeniably beautiful, Russell would agree. But she could never have made him lose his composure, to the point of near loss of control. It was the energy absorbed during the battle with the beast. The upgrade panel could absorb energy and convert it into attribute points, but its filtering function was greatly weakened. In the battle with the beast, Russell absorbed tens of millions of crimson energy. The impurities in this energy were far from enough to crush Russell's spirit. But at certain times, they could have some effect on him. For example, just now, flames rose in his spiritual world, beginning to burn the pervasive crimson mist. Russell composed himself and winked at Natasha in response. Natasha smiled, no longer teasing Russell. She saw that Russell's eyes were clear, it wasn't fun anymore. Seeing this, Russell also smiled and went to greet the others. Again, Russell was a polite person. After exchanging pleasantries, Nick Fury smiled and said, "Russell, you've arrived. Don't worry about the Hand. The Avengers have already apprehended their high-ranking members. If you need them, we can hand them over to you. SHIELD will also help suppress the Sakura Island matter." Russell raised an eyebrow. SHIELD's attitude seemed much more enthusiastic than last time. However, Russell shook his head. "The Sakura Island matter isn't over yet. And I don't need SHIELD's help to suppress it. Whether the world knows or not has no impact on me. I can live without beef now. I don't need to keep a low profile." However, Russell added, "I'll remember what happened to Aaron." Nick Fury frowned and asked, "Kamar-Taj has always been very discreet. Isn't it because they don't want the public to know about supernatural events?" Russell explained, "That was true in the past, but it's different now. The Ancient One has one set of rules, and I have another." The reasons were more complex, but Russell felt it wasn't necessary to explain further to Nick Fury. He'd just let his imagination run wild. Nick Fury paused for a moment, processing the deeper meaning in Russell's words. Then, he asked another question, "Russell, could you tell us what the Beast is?" Of all the information about the Hand, SHIELD was most interested in the Beast. This Beast, whose life form highly overlapped with that of the Blood God and Mephisto. Understanding the Beast would help SHIELD understand what dimensional demons and Hell Lords were all about. To clarify, it wasn't that the protagonist's character had collapsed. Rather, the Beast had exerted all its power, affecting Russell's mind for a fleeting moment. Then Russell realized what was happening. The main purpose was to demonstrate a slight side effect of absorbing too much energy during the panel upgrade. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 The Avenger, Me? Fighting the Gods of Sakura Island? What is the Beast? Russell pondered for a moment before giving his answer. The Beast is a primordial demon, once a dimensional lord like Mephisto. But countless years ago, for unknown reasons, its dimension was devoured by other dimensional lords, becoming a wandering demon. What is a primordial demon? Nick Fury continued. Russell explained, primordial demons are extra-dimensional beings, natives of the Hell dimension. They feed on the souls of the wicked or sinful. Are there many such demons on Earth? Nick Fury pressed. How did the Beast enter Earth? Tony asked in a deep voice. Nick Fury and Tony's voices rang out one after the other, each asking a question. Russell answered Nick Fury first. "I don't know." Then, Russell turned to Tony, his gaze suggestive. 200 years ago, the Ancient One spearheaded the construction of 3 temples to protect Earth, sealing this dimensional node. Unless someone specifically summons it, ordinary dimensional life cannot enter Earth. Tony had a sudden inspiration. "So, when you say the matter on Sakura Island isn't over, you mean?" Russell nodded, somewhat annoyed. "That's right. After resting for a while, I'll go back to Sakura Island again to find out who's behind it all." Judging from the burning speed of the mind fire in his spiritual world, it would take a day or two to completely clear away the crimson mist. The thought of letting the gods of Sakura Island lie for another day or two made Russell feel uneasy. "Who's behind it all?" Tony raised an eyebrow. "Someone capable of doing something like this must be an extraordinary person." "Who do you suspect?" Russell smiled. "Is it possible that it's not human?" Natasha interjected. "Russell, Tony, can you stop playing games? This is SHIELD, not Kamar-Taj." Russell smiled awkwardly and explained, "The person behind it is most likely the Sakura Island Pantheon." "A pantheon? Russell, are you saying there are gods on Earth?" Callison couldn't help but exclaim. Russell nodded, spreading his arms wide. "Of course, aren't I?" "Don't be silly, Russell," Callison said helplessly. He didn't believe in the existence of gods, so naturally he didn't believe Russell was a god either. Although, some of Russell's behaviors were no different from those of a god. Tony echoed Russell. "I did see records of various pantheons on Earth in the documents of Kamar-Taj, including the Sakura Island Pantheon. The book records that the Sakura Island Pantheon has 3 main gods, Amaterasu Mikami, Tsukuyomi, and Susanoo. The 3 respectively govern the sky, the underworld, and the sea, which is quite similar to ancient Greek mythology." Russell added, Coulson, didn't you see two Gabs when you went to Camartage a few days ago? Coulson, Russell reminded, Thor and Loki, a tall, sunny, cheerful young man, and a tall, thin, brooding, handsome young man. They are Thor, the god of thunder, and Loki, the god of mischief, from the Norse pantheon. Coulson frowned, then suddenly realized, I remember now, it's them. But their demeanor is quite different from what you described, Russell. That's not the point, Tony interrupted the two, his expression grave. Russell, is our target the Sakura Island pantheon? The others also looked at Russell, their faces heavy. Their opponents were mythological figures, they couldn't afford to be careless. Russell slowly shook his head. No, the others felt a wave of relief wash over them. Unbeknownst to them, their backs were already soaked with cold sweat. What made them worthy of such a high-level battle? Not us, it's me, Russell stated the whole sentence. After a moment's thought, Russell added, Tony can join the battle if he wants. How's your suit and magic combination going? If we coordinate well, besides the three main gods, there aren't many in the Sakura Island pantheon who can stand against you. Just be careful, after all, they're future members of the Sorcerer Supreme Order. It's good to get some experience with mid-level opponents sooner rather than later. If they unfortunately die in battle, Russell can be resurrected with a time stone. Russell, what do you mean by that? Hearing Russell's words, the others were somewhat displeased. Was he looking down on their strength? Russell sighed inwardly. Lies don't hurt, the truth is the sharpest knife. Look, Dr. Banner is sitting there, calm and collected, showing no sign of being offended. After a moment of silence, Russell chose to be more tactful. This is Camartage's business, not SHIELD. Hearing this, the others' expressions improved. Protecting the security of dimensions is Camartage's responsibility, not SHIELD's responsibility. What Russell said made sense. Yeah, right. They just think the Avengers are weak. Russell, let the Avengers join you. SHIELD can help Camartage, Nick Fury said seriously. He had gone to great lengths to recruit the Avengers and form the Avengers Alliance, not to be cute. Besides, if their strength wasn't sufficient, they could just follow behind Russell and pick up the scraps. They could collect as many technological products and materials as Russell didn't want, and then take them back to SHIELD for research. Gene serums, energy weapons, and their combat power would increase, wouldn't it? Russell looked at Nick Fury with surprise. He hadn't expected Director Fury to be like this. At this moment, Tony also chimed in, the Avengers' combat power is quite good, especially Dr. Banner. I believe they can definitely be of help. Okay. After hesitating for a moment, Russell agreed to the Avengers' request to cling to him. Anyway, having a few more accomplices wouldn't make much difference to him. After thinking for a moment, Russell added, let's set a time for 2 days, no, 48 hours later. In these 2 days, you guys try to evacuate the people on Sakura Island. If a fight really breaks out, although the commotion won't be big, there will still be a little bit. Nick Fury readily agreed. Okay, as scientists, Dr. Banner and Tony were more meticulous and asked seriously. There was a little bit of noise. How much is a little bit? Russell casually replied, don't worry, the Earth won't explode. At most, it'll shatter an island. Huh? Are you serious, Russell? You call that a little bit? Russell retorted, what else? When I fought a beast in his dimension, I almost blew it up. Oh, I forgot to mention, the beast's dimension is about the size of the solar system. The beast's dimension almost exploded because the beast deliberately detonated it, not because of the aftershocks of their battle. Russell deliberately exaggerated to give a heads up. He didn't want anyone pointing fingers after the battle. Russell didn't tolerate that. He wasn't good with words, but his fists were hard enough. Everyone's expression changed. They didn't know if Russell was telling the truth or not. Regardless of whether Russell was telling the truth or not, the combat power he displayed was indeed enough to sink Sakura Island. We need to prepare early to avoid being blamed later, Nick Fury thought to himself. If they really sank Sakura Island, SHIELD couldn't afford to take the blame for such a huge mistake. Chapter 70 The Air Family. Seeing everyone fall silent, Russell tossed the pager he'd given Matt to Tony. I'm leaving now. Tony, press this pager in 2 days, and I'll come back. With that, a portal opened in front of Russell. On the other side of the portal was Earth 65, outside Gwen's house in Queens, New York. Russell stepped out and passed through the portal. The portal dissipated, and sparks fell like cherry blossoms. They landed on the ground and slowly disappeared. Seeing the information on the doorplate, Nick Fury turned to Callison and asked, "Queens, New York? Does Russell own a property there besides the bookstore?" Callison pondered for a moment, then slowly shook his head. "No. Although Russell's whereabouts are difficult to trace, his assets are easy to check. There's no property in Queens, New York listed," Tony explained. "That's Gwen's house, in another universe's New York." He then held up the pager. "He gave me this and told me to contact him in 2 days because the time flow is different in the two universes." "Other universes?" The others exchanged bewildered glances. No wonder Russell said sinking an island was nothing. He could already travel freely between universes. But if portals could connect universes, then what about Tony? Thinking this, the others looked at Tony with burning eyes. Tony said helplessly, "I'm still a little short. Damn it, I should have known better than to explain. Now I'm a complete fraud." Earth 65, New York, a cool night breeze. Passing through the portal, they arrived at Gwen's house. Russell's ears twitched, sensing the situation inside. He knocked. "Gwen, George, I'm coming in." He stepped out, passing through the door, and bumped into Gwen, who was about to leave. George silently walked into the house from the living room. His daughter had grown up. Russell hugged Gwen tightly, knowing the answer already, and asked, "Gwen, are you going out?" Gwen gently pushed Russell away, turned to look at George, and saw that he had already turned and gone back into the house. Her hands slid down and hugged Russell as well. A few more Spider-Men have appeared in New York recently. I'm planning to go check it out tonight and see what's going on." "A few Spider-Men?" Russell asked. "Is it Miguel's Spider Warriors?" Gwen shook her head and suggested, "I don't know." "Why don't we go check it out together?" Russell nodded in agreement. "Okay." With that, a surge of energy coursed through her, and she donned a pristine white robe. The wizard Spider-Man was back. Leaving her home, Gwen swung through the city on her webs. Russell, using magic, levitated and followed behind. Just moments before, Russell had used his mental powers to scan New York City and locate the other Spider-Men. But Gwen was so engrossed in her search that he didn't want to spoil it. "But these Spider-Men, it seems like they were looking for me?" In an abandoned warehouse at a dock, 4 Spider-Men sat huddled together. They were British Spider-Man, Spider-Man Noir, Peony, Mech, Spider-Man, and Spider-Ham. British Spider-Man spoke first, asking, "Are you sure the Wizard Spider-Man and Ghost Spider-Man are in this universe?" "Based on the information gathered these past few days, there's only Ghost Spider-Man in this world," Peony Spider-Man replied. "Did Miles say he saw Wizard Spider-Man and Ghost Spider-Man enter the same quantum portal?" Shadow Spider-Man added, "Wizard Spider-Man and Ghost Spider-Man clearly know each other. Finding Ghost Spider-Man will lead to Wizard Spider-Man." British Spider-Man nodded. "Let's continue operation tonight. Let's find Ghost Spider-Man first." "Hey, are you looking for me?" A portal opened, and Russell emerged with Gwen. Now that they knew these Spider-Men were looking for them, there was no need to play games. Swish, X5. Just as the Spider-Men met, their spider senses triggered. British Spider-Man looked at Russell in confusion. Why didn't this Wizard Spider-Man have spider sense? Swish, X1. Russell activated the spider totem fragment, also triggering his spider sense. Before Russell could speak, Spider-Ham explained for him, "He's Wizard Spider-Man, he has a way to block spider senses." "Is that so?" British Spider-Man glanced at Russell suspiciously, not delving deeper. "In fact, it would be better if Russell weren't Spider-Man." "You haven't answered my question yet," Russell reminded them. "We're here to see you and Ghost Spider-Man," the 4 Spider-Men said in unison. They exchanged glances and ultimately chose British Spider-Man to explain their purpose. "We hope you can join the Spider League to fight against the heirs," Gwen asked in confusion. "The heirs? What are those?" British Spider-Man explained. "The heirs originated from the vampire totem. They can devour the power of all animal totems, especially the spider totem. They are totem terminators and Spider-Man's greatest enemy. They possess physical strength far superior to Spider-Man's and extremely strong regenerative abilities. And now, the heirs are traversing various multiverses, hunting and preying on Spider-Man." As the British Spider-Man finished speaking, the Spider-Men present all turned serious. The thought of a family that preyed on Spider-Man across the multiverse was terrifying. Russell patted Gwen on the shoulder, reassuring her, "Don't worry, I'm here." Then, Russell looked at the other Spider-Men and asked, "So, Do you have any leads on the heirs? Mentioning the heirs reminded Russell of something: cloning technology. The heirs possessed highly advanced cloning technology, which could be used to solve the problem of Matt's destroyed body. The British Spider-Man shook his head gravely. No. Then why did you come to find me and Gwen? Russell asked curiously. The British Spider-Man explained, a branch of the Spider League was attacked recently, resulting in many Spider-Men deaths and injuries. More importantly, some data was leaked. Among them was data on Earth-65. We can't stay here anymore. The heirs might come looking for us at any time. Russell smiled. This was perfect timing. Who are you? British Spider-Man. British Spider-Man, haven't you thought about fighting back against the heirs? We can ambush them here, Sorcerer Spider-Man, British Spider-Man said seriously. The heirs' power is extremely effective against us. We must be cautious in fighting them. I know you're a very powerful Spider-Man, but don't be careless. Among the heirs, there are extremely powerful beings. Like their patriarch Sorwas, and his son Moron. Powerful and powerful are not always the same. British Spider-Man, next chapter in 5 minutes. Chapter 71: The Spider-Man Mage Who Destroyed a Planet with a Single Strike. Powerful and powerful are not always the same. British Spider-Man. Russell's voice rang out slowly. His tone and manner were quite pleasant. But at this moment, it sounded somewhat grating to British Spider-Man's ears. He had repeatedly emphasized the danger of the heirs' families. Couldn't this Sorcerer Spider-Man listen? Seeing British Spider-Man's disbelieving look, Russell didn't explain further. Actions speak louder than words. The mirror space spread, enveloping the Spider-Men. The next instant, space shifted, and Russell led the Spider-Men to the depths of space. To the Spider-Men's left was a planet. To their right was a star. Lacking a comparison, the Spider-Men couldn't discern their exact size with the naked eye. This is the Chang'e star system in the Big Dipper. Chang'e's diameter is about 3 times that of the Sun, and its mass is also 3 times that of the Sun. As for this planet, its diameter is about 7 times that of Earth. Russell scanned with his mental energy, calculating the data. Chang'e, Penny Spider-Man exclaimed. This place is 84 light-years from Earth. Really? We traveled 84 light-years from Earth to get here in an instant. Spider-Man Noir couldn't help but wonder, isn't this in outer space? Why can we still talk and breathe? Russell smiled. This was exactly the effect he wanted. Let me answer your questions one by one. This is indeed Chang'e Star. We arrived here through Kamartaj's magic portal. The reason we can talk and breathe is because I used the magic mirror space to envelop us and then teleported the entire mirror space here. Now, we are in the mirror space. After answering the 2 Spider-Men's questions, Russell pointed to the planet on his left and continued, the purpose of bringing you here is to prove that strength is not all the same. Talent, energy absorption, activated. The light and heat that Chang'e Star originally emitted in all directions instantly condensed into a thick beam of light, shooting towards the direction Russell was pointing. Boom! A high-energy pulse cannon powered by stellar energy bombarded the planet's surface. Although no sound was heard, the Spider-Men seemed to hear the planet's mournful cry. The atmosphere was dispelled, the surface burned, and the crust was ripped apart. From a distance, the entire planet's surface looked like an eggshell. A few breaths later, the entire planet was completely destroyed, exploding into cosmic ruins. Could this fight Sorwas and Moron? The Spider-Men were stunned by the sight before them, unable to recover for a long time, and no one answered Russell's question. After a while, they finally came to their senses. Spider-Man Noir looked at the 3 Spider-Men, as if to say, the Sorcerer Spider-Man you all talk about is powerful, but not this outrageous. If he's this strong, why didn't you say so earlier? If you had latched onto the Sorcerer Spider-Man earlier, we might have won the war against the heirs family long ago. The 3 Spider-Men looked at each other. The last time they met, the Sorcerer Spider-Man was much stronger than them, but they were still roughly on the same level. Now, he destroyed a planet with one blow? We don't know why he became so strong. We're all Spider-Men, so why is there such a big difference? Even the art style was completely different. The 4 Spider-Men stared at each other, bewildered. After a long while, the British Spider-Man said, Sorcerer Spider-Man, I apologize for underestimating you before. I support your opinion. In this world, ambush the heirs. We agree. Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Man Penny, and Spider-Ham chimed in like chicks chasing each other. Russell nodded in satisfaction. Very good. This demonstration of firepower was a success. Since you all support me, let me explain my plan. Plan? The Spider-Man looked at Russell. Sorcerer Spider-Man was powerful and reliable. Too dependable. Russell flipped his hand and took out 5 pagers, just like Matt's. My plan is that you proceed normally. When you encounter the heirs, press the pager. I will use a portal to support you. The Spider-Man solemnly took the pagers and carefully placed them away. These were life-saving items, not to be taken lightly. Then, they continued to look at Russell, waiting for him to assign them tasks. Russell glanced at the Spider-Man with surprise. Why are you all looking at me? What's the follow-up plan? The Spider-Man asked in unison. Follow-up plan? What follow-up plan? Russell retorted, then added, as long as I capture one member of the heirs family, I can follow the trail to their headquarters and take them down. Then he'd seize the cloning technology and clone Matt into body. As they spoke, the group had already returned to New York. Let's go, the night is perfect. We can go wherever we want, just consider it a vacation. With that, Russell pulled Gwen away. Russell didn't take the heirs family seriously. The heirs family were Spider-Man's natural enemies, not his. Besides, Russell wasn't alone. The Ancient One was still on Earth 65. Thinking of this, Russell sent a private message to the Ancient One. Sorcerer, please keep an eye on those 4 Spider-Men. Don't let them be ambushed by the heirs family and killed before they can even press their pagers. Russell wanted to prove that his pager was working properly. Last time was a special case. It was entirely Matt's bad luck. The moonlight was bright, and the night breeze was cool. Russell and Gwen sat side by side on the edge of a tower, gazing at the enchanting night view. However, Gwen seemed somewhat absent-minded. Russell, Gwen suddenly broke the silence. When did you become so strong? When I first met you, although your physical abilities far surpassed those of ordinary people, you were still not as strong as me. But after a few days, you suddenly surpassed me. Now, I feel like I can't see through you at all. Gwen's voice carried a hint of confusion. She didn't intentionally pry into Russell's secrets, but rather didn't want to fall too far behind him. Russell didn't speak, but simply held Gwen tighter, listening quietly. During this time, I also studied magic with the Ancient One, but I can't achieve what you're like at all. Right now, it seems like you've been the one helping me all along. First, changing other people's impressions of Peter's death, and now you're going against the evil and powerful heirs. Gwen knew perfectly well whether Russell was Spider-Man or not. The war between the heirs and Spider-Man originally had nothing to do with him. It was all because of her that Russell got involved. Russell, it's so good to have you. But sometimes, I want to help you too. Gwen leaned on Russell's shoulder and murmured softly. Gwen, your existence is the greatest help to me. Russell rested his chin on Gwen's head, his voice reaching deep into her heart. Chapter 72 Spell, Great Wilderness Starfall. Sorcerer, please keep an eye on those 4 Spider-Men. Don't let them get ambushed by the heirs and get killed before they can even press their pagers. The Ancient One, meditating in Camartage, twitched her beard slightly. This brat, does he think I'm his babysitter? Doesn't he know the meaning of respecting one's teacher? With a surge of spiritual energy, the Ancient One attempted to remotely connect with Russell. Why can't I connect? He's clearly in that location. Strange. The Ancient One waved her hand, and a light screen formed, its coordinates showing Russell's location. But the screen was completely dark. Why is this kid distorting and shielding space-time? Is he afraid I'll peek? The next day, Russell woke up on a small boat floating in the middle of a lake. He looked at the water. The figure on the water was radiant, beaming. Russell, wine and women can't harm me. From this day forward, I'll indulge in sensual pleasures. Clouds, seas, snow-capped mountains, jungles, grasslands. I'll travel the world. 5 days later, Russell returned to Earth 404. New York, Stark Tower, living room. Russell and Tony sat across the coffee table, each sipping their drinks. Russell finished his coconut water first and asked, Tony, didn't I tell you to page me in a couple of days? It's been several days, why haven't you pressed it yet? Although the time flow rates on Earth 65 and Earth 404 differ, they are both real universes, and their time flow rates are very similar. It generally doesn't exceed 1, 2. Tony put down his glass, paused for a moment, and then said seriously, Russell, are you serious about possibly sinking Sakura Island? Russell nodded. Tony frowned and asked, what about the island's inhabitants? It's impossible to evacuate hundreds of millions of people in just a few days. The mirror space. The Ancient One and I will use the mirror space to protect them, Russell explained. Then why not put the battlefield in the mirror space? Tony pressed. If the gods of Sakura Island dare to come out, then of course we can put the battlefield in the mirror space. But if they cower and hide in dimensional space, the only way is to open their dimensional barrier in the real world, Russell continued to explain. If there are no problems, notify Nick Fury and gather the Avengers to prepare for departure. Tony frowned, but still had Jarvis notify Nick Fury. The reason he hadn't notified Russell on time was to evacuate as many people as possible. Now, 7 days had passed, and those who could leave had already left. The remaining people wouldn't leave even if given another 7 weeks or 7 months. Upon receiving Tony's notification, Nick Fury didn't waste any words. He immediately ordered the Avengers to assemble on the deck. As for the space carrier, it had already sailed to the skies above Sakura Island several days ago. In the past few days, Sakura Island had become the center of world opinion. Unaware people were speculating whether Sakura Island had rebelled and was about to face a severe beating from its father. Those who knew were heavy-hearted. High-ranking officials from various countries had received the news from SHIELD and verified it through other channels. Kamar Taj, which had protected Earth from magical corruption since ancient times, would go to war with the long-vanished gods of Sakura Island, the pantheon of gods. After this battle, the supernatural world will be fully exposed to the world. The world order will be completely altered. The outcome of this battle will also determine the intensity of the next arms race, the supernatural competition. Humanity has emerged from the age of ignorance, and nations will not easily relinquish their sovereignty. They have mastered a methodology called science and believe that this methodology can also be applied to the research of supernatural magical powers. But all of this is irrelevant to Russell. Russell stood in the sky, overlooking the capital of the Sakura Kingdom below. His gaze passed through a certain shrine, looking at the gods of Sakura Island. Since the rise of the Ancient One, the Sorcerer Supreme, 500 years ago, Kamar Taj has established rules for the gods. Either leave Earth or retire, handing the stage over to humanity. The gods of Sakura Island, outwardly retiring, secretly harbor treacherous intentions. After finding a loophole in the sanctuary's magic array, they secretly lured the primal demon beasts in and out of Earth, and they will substitute one thing for another, continuing to absorb the power of human faith, using human souls to make deals with beasts. Russell's voice descended from the heavens, not loud, but it resonated throughout Sakura Island. Below, a figure stepped forward from the crowd, indignantly saying, "Earth belongs to the gods, Sakura Island belongs to the Sakura Pantheon. The Ancient One's order for the gods to leave Earth and steal off this node is far too domineering." Russell glanced at the shrine, a look of disgust flashing in his eyes. He changed his mind. "Master, help protect the crowd." As soon as the words fell, a massive portal opened above the shrine. The next second, a meteorite about 10 meters in diameter, traveling at Mach 50, hurtled out and crashed straight into the shrine. At such distance and speed, only the Ancient One could protect the crowd from this meteorite. Crack! Crack! The mirrored space rapidly spread, engulfing the entire capital of the Sakura Kingdom and swallowing up everyone on the ground. Russell and the Ancient One were reasonable people. They would not harm the innocent. As for property damage, well, boom. Like dozens of atomic bombs exploding simultaneously, the shrine was instantly destroyed by the shockwave from the meteorite's impact. Within the shrine, the Sakura deity, who had been substituting for the Sakura people and absorbing their faith, was also instantly killed. The shockwave swept across the entire city. All the buildings along the way were destroyed, and the capital of Sakura Island was reduced to ashes. Within the dimensional space, the Sakura Island gods, who had been filled with righteous indignation upon hearing Russell's words, immediately fell silent. Russell made a slight move, reaching the pinnacle of the Sakura Island god's power. Suddenly, a figure covered in wounds and charred blackened burst forth from the explosion's epicenter, heading straight for Russell in the sky. It was the one who had previously stepped forward from the crowd. "Kakeruchi Susanu no Mikado!" Several exclamations rang out. It turned out that this figure who had stepped forward from the crowd was none other than Kenshin no Mikado, one of the 3 main gods of Sakura Island, the sea god. In Sakura Island mythology, he was renowned for his slaying of the food god and subduing the Yamata no Orochi. Although this mage's spells are incredibly destructive, as long as I get close, I have a chance to win. With unwavering resolve, Susanoo rushed to Russell's feet. He reached out to grab Russell. Russell raised his leg, gathering divine power. He lashed out at Susanoo. Bang! A cloud of blood exploded. Susanoo's upper body exploded into bloody mist, his lower body falling limply to the ground. It seems your physical strength is inferior to that of the frost giant King Luffy, Russell murmured, waving away the bloody mist. Luffy's strength was rising. He had withstood Russell's full-force ordinary punch, only suffering severe injuries and being sent flying. He could even stand up. The next chapter is still being written. Can I finish it before midnight? I definitely can. Chapter 73 Sakura Island, gone? Like the frost giants of Jotunheim, the gods of Sakura Island also became targets for Russell's show of force. They were all chickens used as examples to warn others, only they were unaware of it. The former were used to warn the Nine Realms, the latter were used to warn the pantheons of Earth. On the space carrier, the Avengers, poised for action, froze. They were contemplating the ultimate question: who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? Weren't we supposed to act together, fight side by side? After a long while, Dr. Banner recovered and asked Tony and the others, has Russell always been this brave? He attacks without warning. And when he does, it's a game changer. Tony, Natasha, Hawkeye, and Blade remained silent. They had fought alongside Russell during the Blood God's descent incident. Back then, Russell had already shown strength and recklessness. Now he was even stronger, and even more reckless. Below, the people who had suddenly lost their home looked at the surrounding ruins in disbelief. That celestial being in the sky, didn't he just save them from that tsunami a while ago? How come he's destroying their homes now? No, someone suddenly shouted from the crowd. The celestial being is the true God, the ones in the shrine are false gods. The true God is punishing the false gods, destroying our buildings is just collateral damage. Look, aren't we alive and well? Saying this, he spread his arms and spun around to prove he was unharmed. It's all those who worship the false gods' fault. They angered the celestial being, causing divine punishment that has caused us to lose our homes. That's right, that must be it. Kill these false believers, kill these false believers. After a brief commotion, the crowd formed a unified will, kill those false believers. The conversation between Russell and Susanoo was selectively ignored. The bewildered and angry crowd needed an outlet. But this target couldn't be Russell, who held their lives in his hands. In the dimensional space, the Sakura gods watched as Susanoo's lower body plummeted, creating a small crater in the large impact crater. Only then did they regain their senses. One of their chief gods, Susanoo, the ruler of the sea, had been instantly killed with a single kick. Quick! Close the Takamagahara passage. Strengthen the dimensional defenses to the fullest extent. Within Takamagahara, Amaterasu Mikami, one of the three chief gods of the Sakura pantheon, reacted and immediately ordered her guards to close the dimensional passage. As one of the three chief gods, Susanoo's instant death meant she was in no better shape. On the other side, the same scene was unfolding. Quick! Close the Night Country passage. Strengthen the dimensional defenses to the fullest extent. Tsukuyomi, another of the three chief gods of the Sakura pantheon, also reacted. In the sky, Russell watched the two-dimensional passages closing, unconcerned. He had already projected energy into them to locate them, ready to enter through the portal at any time. However, this battle to establish authority, ending with a sudden decapitation strike, would be too hasty. He wanted to make a big scene. Once the dimensional portal closed and the defensive barrier was established, the gods within the dimensional space relaxed. Russell then spoke, "Want to negotiate?" "I love negotiating." Negotiation. Amaterasu Mikami and Tsukuyomi exchanged a glance, somewhat tempted. Although their younger brother had died, and he was their own flesh and blood, they were genuinely afraid. Susanoo no Mikado, the most skilled warrior among the three, had been instantly killed. After a moment's hesitation, Amaterasu Mikami asked first, "Sorcerer of Kamartaj, what are your conditions? Surrender, open your minds, and let me examine your memories one by one. Those who collude with dimensional demons, die." Russell's voice fell, his killing intent palpable. The gods in Takamagahara and the land of Nide all changed their expressions. They were gods of faith. After the Ancient One established the rules, their source of faith was almost completely severed. Without making deals with dimensional demons, their power would rapidly diminish. Every single one of the gods still alive had made a deal with the dimensional demons. This condition was practically asking for their deaths. Without even considering it, Amaterasu Mikami refused outright. Master Mage, this condition is too domineering, we cannot accept it. It violates our right to privacy. Right to privacy. Russell's expression was strange. Were these gods so progressive now? So, you refused? Russell smiled. That was good. Making an example of someone was meant to show them. He wanted to demonstrate dominance, not bloodthirstiness. Without further ado, Russell drew circles with his hands, simultaneously opening a portal above Takamagahara and the Land of Night. On the other side of the portal was the sun, which had been burning for billions of years. His talent, energy absorption, activated slightly. Solar energy instantly converged and then shot through the portal towards Takamagahara and the Land of Night. Two high-energy pulse cannons struck the dimensional barriers of Takamagahara and the Land of Night, creating ripples. Great, it's blocked. Within Takamagahara, Amaterasu Mikami felt a sense of relief. Russell's sudden attack without a word had truly frightened her. Fortunately, the dimensional barrier of Takamagahara had held. Mage, Susanoo no Mikado, who colluded with a primal demon beast, has already been slain by you. Let's end this here. You can't break through the Takamagahara dimensional barrier. Amaterasu Mikami's voice had barely faded when Tsukuyomi's voice rang out. Not good, the energy cannon's attack intensity is rapidly increasing. Since they were on Earth, Russell had to be careful to avoid accidentally blowing up the planet. Therefore, he didn't unleash his full power from the start, but gradually increased the intensity. At this moment, the pulse cannon attack, with its gradually increasing energy intensity, was like the approaching footsteps of death. Amaterasu Mikami and Tsukuyomi were thrown into chaos. Although they were in the Sakura mythology, one a sun goddess, the other a grim reaper, the true solar energy was now pushing them towards death. Under the increasingly intense bombardment of the two pulse cannons, Sakura Island succumbed first. The high-energy pulse cannons bombarded the dimensional barrier, and the emitted light and heat intensified the island. As everyone knows, Sakura Island's buildings are densely packed, and many are made of wood, making them particularly vulnerable to fire. A massive fire engulfed the entire island. Left with no other choice, the Ancient One pulled everyone on the island into a mirror dimension. Although their homes were gone, they could at least witness the fire up close. Such opportunities are rare. Sakura Island is gone. In the mirror dimension, the crowd who witnessed the island engulfed in flames stared blankly, collapsing to the ground. Their voices trembled with sobs as they repeated, "Sakura Island is gone." At this moment, they felt an intense hatred for Amaterasu Mikami, who had rejected Russell. If you have a clear conscience, why didn't you dare to accept the inspection? It's all the fault of these false gods, colluding with extraterrestrial demons, that they incurred the punishment of the gods. Sorry, the island will sink in the next chapter. Leopard crying. Did chapter 74 sink? It really sank. As the energy level of the high-energy pulse cannon continued to increase, cracks gradually appeared in the dimensional barriers between Takamagahara and the Land of Night. It's over, the dimensional defenses are about to collapse. Amaterasu Mikami collapsed helplessly onto her throne. Years of pampered life had robbed her of the composure befitting a goddess. In this critical moment, instead of facing the challenge head-on, she was utterly dejected. But time would not stand still for her. The cracks in the Takamagahara dimensional barrier spread rapidly. Snap, like a balloon being popped, the Takamagahara dimensional barrier shattered. In the cherry blossom myth, Takamagahara, symbolizing the Sky Kingdom, was revealed to the world. Amidst the clouds, a magnificent palace loomed, its gates crafted of gold and inlaid with dazzling gems, like twinkling stars, radiating light. Truly worthy of being the abode of the gods, worthy of being the temple of the sun goddess. It was beautiful and luxurious, yet filled with tranquility and peace. It inspired longing, yet one dared not easily disturb its serenity. The next instant, a high-energy pulse cannon, imbued with the light and heat of a star, pierced through the dimensional portal and struck Takamagahara, shattering the tranquility. Clouds were torn apart, palaces were destroyed. A series of booming sounds and explosions echoed from the bombarded palaces. Immediately afterward, the high-energy pulse cannon pierced through Takamagahara. From the point of penetration, cracks rapidly spread throughout the entire region. Russell waved his hand, closing the portal. Another explosion resounded from Takamagahara. In the explosion, the entire Takamagahara was pulverized and plummeted from the sky, the shattered faith of the Sakura people. The sky darkened at that moment. Looking up, the sun appeared dim and lifeless. It seemed even it was mourning the fall of the sun goddess. Amaterasu Amikami is dead, and Takamagahara has been shattered. Looking at the suddenly darkened sky, the people of Sakura Island were filled with sorrow. On the deck of the space carrier, Natasha murmured to herself, "Is this what gods are? The celestial phenomena change when they fall." Dr. Banner scratched his head. "Perhaps I can explain. The sun is about 500 light seconds from Earth. Just now, Russell bombarded Takamagahara with solar energy exactly 500 seconds ago. Because Russell concentrated all the sunlight directed at Earth, the sky darkened. It has nothing to do with the death of Amaterasu Amikami." "Yes, that's right," Tony affirmed. They were knowledgeable and easily saw the reason for the sun dimming and the sky darkening. If a planet's most powerful god falls, it will indeed cause celestial changes. But such changes are limited to a certain area and rarely affect the entire planet. A ring of fire appeared out of nowhere, and Loki's voice rang out first. Immediately afterward, Loki and Thor stepped out of the portal. "I just sensed a strong energy fluctuation here, and then the whole sky went dark. Is Russell fighting someone? The Ancient One, the Ancient One." The Avengers followed Thor and Loki's gaze and landed on an empty deck. The light distorted as the Ancient One deactivated her invisibility, revealing herself. Although she could fly, there was no need to fly herself since there was a place to stand. The Ancient One greeted everyone with a smile before answering Loki's question. "The Sakura Pantheon violated the agreement with Kamartaj 500 years ago, and Russell is attacking them." Thor was delighted at the prospect of battle and asked, "Ancient One, do you need our help?" The Ancient One shook her head. "Thank you for your kindness, Thor. But no need, Russell can handle it himself." On the space carrier, the sudden appearance of the Ancient One, Thor, and Loki became the focus of SHIELD's attention. Nick Fury secretly plotted how to make contact with the Ancient One and the others. He wouldn't let this opportunity slip by. Within the land of night, Tsukuyomi, witnessing all this, was filled with sorrow and worry. In a short time, he had lost his sister and brother, who had been with him for many years. Of course, what saddened and worried him was not the deaths of his sister and brother, but that death was about to befall him. Embed the land of night into the earth, quickly. Coming back to his senses, Tsukuyomi quickly ordered the guards. "The defenses of the land of night alone cannot withstand this mage's magic. We must transfer the attack to the ground." At this moment, Tsukuyomi was incredibly fortunate. He was the god of the underworld who controlled death. His land of night was underground, not in the air. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been Takamagahara that had just been blasted apart, but his land of night. Russell was surprised. The dimensional barrier of the land of night suddenly stabilized. Without needing to observe closely, Russell discovered the truth. Tsukuyomi has transferred part of the attack to Sakura Island. Not only Russell, but everyone on the space carrier, and even the inhabitants of Sakura Island in the mirror space, noticed the anomaly. Sakura Island was sinking, it was moving. In a chain reaction, massive earthquakes struck multiple locations on Sakura Island almost simultaneously. Volcanoes erupted everywhere. Tsunamis swept in. The entire Sakura Island seemed to have been transformed into a living hell, a scene of apocalypse. "Is this pushing the entire Sakura Island into the Mariana Trench and sinking it into the sea?" The erudite Dr. Banner noticed something amiss. Sakura Island is advancing towards the Mariana Trench, 200 kilometers away, and the speed of advancement is constantly accelerating. High above, Russell remained calm. Tsukuyomi's decision to divert the attack aimed at the land of night to the Sakura Island was indeed unexpected. But how long could Sakura Island hold out for the land of night? Once outside Sakura Island, Tsukuyomi wouldn't have the ability to divert the attack again. Time passed slowly. Sakura Island continued to advance towards the Mariana Trench, and the island was continuously submerged by the sea. Good news, the fire that had spread across the entire island was extinguished. The dissipated solar heat burned the sea, and water vapor rose upwards. Amidst this whirling mist, the inhabitants of Sakura Island in the mirrored space seemed to have entered a mirage. If they maintained a calm mindset, they might have been able to perceive the fragmented beauty, the broken walls and cracked ground, a beauty of devastation and incompleteness. Boom! Suddenly, a massive tremor reverberated throughout the entire island. The Mariana Trench, they had arrived. Under the force of gravity, the entire island accelerated towards the Mariana Trench. Upon impact, the island fractured at points of uneven stress. The earth was torn apart with an intensity far exceeding any previous earthquake. The sea surged, unleashing towering waves. If these waves were not dealt with, they could potentially trigger tsunamis along other coastlines. High above, Russell activated his talent, absorbing the kinetic energy of the waves and smoothing them out. Moments later, the entire Sakura Island plunged into the Mariana Trench. The sinking of Sakura Island, considered a possible event tens of thousands of years in the future, was now unfolding. Chapter 75 Tsukuyomi's Fate, I Want to Die Like a King. As Sakura Island plunged into the Mariana Trench, the entire island disintegrated, exposing the Kingdom of Night. Unlike the magnificent Hakamagahara, the Kingdom of Night was closer to nature. Ancient palaces stood atop hills shrouded in mist, surrounded by verdant ancient trees. The trees shimmered with a pure white light, like the cool moonlight. This was the final resting place of the Sakura people's spirits, a dreamlike realm. The next instant, a high-energy pulse cannon roared down, piercing the Kingdom of Night. The dream shattered. The Kingdom of Night, like Takamagahara, exploded. On the eve of the Kingdom of Night's destruction, Tsukuyomi rose, silently gazing at Russell high above. He remained motionless, letting the shockwaves of the explosion tear his body apart. He wanted to die with dignity, like a god. Russell ignored Tsukuyomi's gaze. Tsukuyomi's desire for dignity and solemnity was his own business, none of Russell's concern. In a real fight, Tsukuyomi wouldn't even last a single blow from Russell. They were simply not on the same level. After confirming the Night Kingdom had exploded and Tsukuyomi was dead, Russell landed on the sea. The sea beneath his feet rapidly froze, the ice spreading outwards and into the depths. Moments later, it was as if they had returned to the Ice Age, the sea frozen solid. The original location of Sakura Island was replaced by a massive glacier. The people of Sakura Island in the mirror world now had a place to settle in the real world. Having done all this, Russell opened a portal and vanished. He had finished what he needed to do. The mess was now left to SHIELD to clean up. Even clinging to powerful force has its tasks. He couldn't just finish a team battle without his makeup smudged or his sweat broken, could he? When Sakura Island plunged into the Mariana Trench, the tremors were felt throughout the earth. Combined with the earlier sudden darkening of the sky and the dimming of the sun, rumors of a 2012 apocalypse spread like wildfire. Various messages flooded the internet. Slowly, the incredibly resourceful netizens pieced together the truth. Sakura Island sank. It was sunk by a godlike man with unparalleled power. Compared to the netizens, the high-ranking officials of various countries on Earth were even more shocked. Although they had decided from the beginning to sacrifice Sakura Island to probe the power of the Kamartage sorcerer and the Pantheon, and had anticipated the possible consequences, the result still terrified them. The good news was that the Kamartage sorcerer's methods of attack were understandable: teleportation, meteorites, and high-energy pulse cannons. The bad news was that it was undefendable. With the current level of research into spatial theory, various countries couldn't defend against teleportation portals. However, decades ago during World War II, Hydra seemed to possess a mysterious item related to space. Immediately, various countries intensified their efforts to investigate Kamartage and Russell's intelligence, assembling elite teams to model and analyze Russell, and searching for the whereabouts of the Tesseract. Compared to the shocked high-ranking officials of various countries, the gods still stranded on Earth were terrified. What the Sakura Island Pantheon did, most of them, more or less, had done as well. Russell could break through the Sakura Island Pantheon's dimensional barrier and destroy two of its divine kingdoms. Naturally, he could also break through their dimensional barrier and destroy their divine kingdom. Unable to afford to defend them. Time to slip away. This was the reaction of most pantheons. They decided to follow their predecessors, leave Earth, and start anew. Regardless of the reactions of various forces on Earth, these were irrelevant to Russell. Back in Kamartage, Russell just wanted to relax. Although he had only rested for 5 days on Earth-65, work, no matter how long you rest beforehand, will always feel tiring once you start working. Lying on the wooden rocking chair, Russell opened his attribute panel for the first time in a long time. In the past month or so, he had experienced several battles and needed to carefully review and summarize his abilities. Deep Blue, activate, name, Russell, God Race, attribute points. 1,557, 4,396 invincible body. 100 talent 1 energy absorption, Can absorb any energy and convert it into attribute points. Talent 2 Attribute Transfer. Attribute points can be used to enhance the divine body. Description: upgrading. Estimated upgrade time is 5 months. Russell's gaze first fell on the attribute points and the description. The battle with the beast absorbed about 12 million scarlet energy, which only slightly affected my personality. Although the panel hasn't changed, my mental resilience is stronger than when I first advanced. It seems that the panel subtly improved my foundation during the upgrade. It will only fully erupt after the upgrade is complete. I wonder how many attribute points I will need to max out the next stage after the upgrade. Hopefully it won't be a 100-fold increase, but 300 million attribute points to max out the next stage. At this stage, what limits Russell's further improvement is no longer attribute points, but the upgrade time of the panel. Russell hasn't forgotten that he still has 2 billion units of hellish energy from Mephisto, stored with the Ancient One. Moreover, the Ancient One had long ago agreed to give Russell her accumulated wealth, energy, over the years. Then, Russell's gaze fell on the 2 talents. Energy absorption. It's not just about absorbing energy, but also comes with energy insight and energy control abilities. Energy absorption itself is an extremely strong defensive ability. Combined with the invincible body, it makes me almost immune to all attacks. Energy insight can help me learn and replicate spells, and counter my opponent's moves. Energy control ability, in the real universe, can draw on stellar energy to help me fight. But in dimensional space, it's not very useful and needs further development. In addition, although the efficiency of converting physical energy into attribute points is still very low, but the ability to manipulate physical energy in combat has been greatly improved compared to the beginning, and it can also be further developed. Attribute transfer. I wonder if there's any untapped potential in the invincible body. Compared to energy absorption, this talent seems a bit lacking. While pondering, Russell raised his hand, and a ball of divine power condensed. The invincible body's bonuses consist of 2 parts, pure physical constitution and divine power. Unlike attribute points, divine power can be quickly replenished by converting physical energy. Logically speaking, my divine power is also a type of magical power, so why can't my talent attribute absorption absorb my divine power? This question baffled Russell. If attribute absorption could absorb his own divine power, his speed of collecting attribute points would skyrocket. Mage Russell, I finally found you. I haven't seen you in Kamartaj for a while. A clear voice entered Russell's ears as a shadow fell. Russell looked up but couldn't see the person's face. Wanda, is there something you need? The editor said it would be published tomorrow at noon. But I don't have any drafts saved up. What should I do? It's a headache. Only by writing all night can I make ends meet. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.